Big Bad Brad, baby. Big Bad Brad does it, Diesel. After all the smack talk, after all the doubters, after all the years of mediocrity, Big Bad Brad really, really did it last night.
I better watch out or I'm going to be labeled as a tater hater.
Elite Eight. Can you believe that? The Clemson Tigers have punched their ticket to the Elite Eight. What a game last night. Right off the bat, a ton of reaction to get to from last night's Clemson win over Arizona. I called for the upset yesterday on the program. I was a little off on my score prediction, however, but in the end, Clemson, led by their guard play and defense last night, they do it yet again. And the Clemson Tigers now will face Alabama in the Elite Eight for the first time since 1980. The Tigers can say they're playing in the midst of one of the best 8 teams left in the country, Diesel.
And here's what it sounded like when they finally got that dub. Maybe.
Why not? Missed it. Clock ticks. And it is going to be the Clemson Tigers out of the ACC.
Woo! Wow.
To the Elite Eight.
Unbelievable. I honestly, yes, I picked them, but like before the game started, I thought to myself, man, this is going to be a really, really tough game. And what does Clemson do? We said it yesterday on the program, Diesel. And this is one thing that we talked about, and I felt like we got right. I said to you, Clemson needs to get off to a good start, just like they did against New Mexico, just like they did against Baylor. The defense, that zone defense that Brad Brownell had in place last night, frustrated the heck out of Arizona in the first half. The first half, just talking about the first half, Diesel, the way they got off, they controlled the pace. They got up 6-3. Then they had a couple of Arizona turnovers that led to Clemson baskets. R.J. Godfrey showing up early for the Tigers last night. In the first half, it was truly a team effort. And when I got to the halftime break, I thought to myself, wow, if Clemson is going to win this thing, they had the first half start that they really, really needed to have.
Arizona just looked out of sorts.
They looked lost.
From the very beginning of that game. I mean, this was a run and gun, push the ball kind of offense, and they had opportunities to do that. I mean, I saw at least 3 or 4 that I can think of off the top of my head, opportunities where Arizona was pushing the ball and just missing layups, like easy shots. And you see those things and you think to yourself, oh, that's going to be cumulative. That's going to be a problem.
Without a doubt.
It's almost like the whole team got the yips.
Well, we said it going into the game, Arizona was known for their three-point shooting. And they referenced it a couple of times on the broadcast last night that, oh, Arizona, they live by the 3, but tonight they're dying by the 3. And they really did. I really think, though, like I had I don't want to say an argument, Diesel. I had a debate last night with someone after the game that said, oh, well, it was Arizona's fault. It wasn't anything Clemson did. It was Arizona's poor coaching that got them to where they really were just looking lost offensively. I think, in my opinion, I said, man, I thought that defense last night from Clemson was once again absolutely fantastic. As I said, Arizona, when you watch them in the first half, they really had to slow down. Like, they weren't a team that came into that game wanting to get into half-court sets and slow the pace of play, but they did. And Clemson got off to a 16-6 start, a 10-2 run halfway through the first half. And that really, when you can play defense, we said it on the show yesterday, when you can play defense like that, Diesel, you set the pace of play. And that's what Clemson did. On paper, they have no business beating Baylor and Arizona. But, man, the 2 games last night were won by defense. I'm talking about Alabama and Clemson. But Clemson's defense, to me, last night was a story of the game.
Give me your best Eli Gold saying Alabama.
Ooh.
Alabama.
And he's done this year, right? Isn't he retiring?
He's done.
Alabama.
Already. Yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, I grew up watching Eli Gold call NASCAR. That's the Eli Gold.
That's sad.
I don't know Eli as Alabama play-by-play. But, I mean, yeah, you said it yourself. They live by the 3. They die by the 3. Caleb Love, the guy that we were looking at, this is the dude who has to shoot well for Arizona to win this game. And Clemson had to be able to limit that guy to win the game. He scored just 13 points last night, 0 for 9. This is a shooter.
Yeah.
We said it. Like, this dude, if he's hot, You got to double team him. If he's not, leave him alone because he's going to have a rough night. 0 for 9 from 3. And as a matter of fact, there was a stretch down there towards in the middle of the second half where Arizona had missed 8 straight from three-pointer.
So talking about this,
and they were missing layups, so they couldn't hit it from outside. They couldn't hit it from inside.
They were, and I think that, to your point, I do think Arizona probably should have kept driving and kept going to the rim. When you talk about the second half, it was 39-31 at the half. I did get worried when I saw P.J. Hall turnover. His first foul with 17:51 to go in the second half. And then he had another turnover, led to an Arizona 3. Then Arizona went on an 8-0 run. And all of a sudden, it's kind of like, oh, man, here we go again with the Baylor game, the way that ended. And you're thinking, man, Clemson better do something. But again, Jack Clark, wow, Jack Clark last night was absolutely terrific. Gerard hit a big 3 to keep him in the game, midway through that second half. And then P.J. Hall, toward the end of the game, I think you have to give him a ton of credit. He hit some huge shots. He had a layup, and then the inbounds play that I felt like, how in the world did he get so open? Like, how did Arizona leave him so open? They call a timeout. Clemson led by 3, and I felt like on that inbound play, Diesel, that Big Bad Brad drew up something fantastic.
Yeah, that was a beautiful play that he had, and that wasn't even the only inbound play that made you scratch your head if you're an Arizona fan. Right at the very end of the game, Arizona hits the layup, something in the range of 20 seconds, 15 seconds to go in that game, and then they just let Clemson get the ball into Gerard by himself, and then he finds Dylan Hunter for an outlet pass and the icing and one. Here's what that sounded like.
They put it in. Nobody guarding Gerard. Up ahead. Nobody guarding Dylan Hunter. And he's going to lay it in. And the younger brother has an and one. Dylan Hunter with his first basket of the game.
Man, what a huge shot to make your first points of the game.
Oh, my word.
Right there with under 15 seconds to play. And there was a stretch there where I thought, man, this could get a little dicey.
Yeah, I did too.
There was a stretch where Clemson couldn't hit their free throws. I remember Joe Girard was fouled on a three-pointer. He missed his first 2. And the play-by-play guy said, this is like seeing a dodo. Like, you don't see this. This doesn't happen. You don't see Joe Girard miss two free throws. There was a point where I think they said he had hit 67 in a row over the course of the season. This guy is damn near automatic, as automatic as it automatic gets, and he misses 2 free throws. And then P.J. Hall misses a free throw. And then somebody else misses a free throw. And you're like, what? Come on. This is how you let Arizona back in the game.
Rob Brown on the stream. By the way, Rob, you didn't respond to my tweet of the video I sent you earlier. You're probably a little salty about it. Rob says it's because Brad Brownell is a solid X's and O's guy. That's never been the problem. Mental composure was, and if it wasn't an issue last night. And if wasn't an issue last night, says Rob. Diesel, one thing that I thought was interesting. You remember yesterday when we were talking to Thomas Ryan and we're talking about P.J. Hall, we asked the question, there was a lot of pressure in that New Mexico game. And then after you win that, a little bit of pressure's off because you win the first one. It's kind of like, okay, Brad can breathe a little bit. He gets Baylor, right? And then the Baylor game, you win that one. And I asked Thomas Ryan yesterday, was there pressure last night? And he said, like, obviously there's pressure from being in the Sweet 16, but he said, I don't really think there's a ton of pressure on Clemson. I thought Clemson played so loose last night. They looked loose. PJ didn't get into foul trouble early. He did a little bit in the second half, but it didn't matter by that point. They played loose, like they just were out there having fun. And I thought that was a different, I don't want to say the difference in the game, but if you watch the way Arizona played, they kind of played tight.
Yeah, I saw vintage PJ Hall come alive in the last 4 to 5 minutes of that game. I mean,
yes.
He was playing loose.
He was.
And he was scoring a lot of points down the stretch there. So congratulations to PJ Hall. And Thomas Ryan, you didn't say it just now. That was PJ Hall's high school basketball coach at Norman. We have that interview available for you to replay. Whether you're listening on the Odyssey app, it's there. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We broadcast live here from the Ingalls Market Studios at 25 Garlington Road in Greenville. You got something to say about Clemson's performance last night? 844-FAN phone. That's the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. 844-326-3663. You can also text 71307. Just start your text with keyword fan. We want to hear what you thought about last night's Clemson performance that puts them in the Elite Eight for the first time in 44 years.
I think that Arizona last night truly did die by the 3. And we'll talk to Don Munson, play-by-play voice of Clemson. Diesel booked him for 4 o'clock today. Is that right? 4 p.m.
Correct.
today?
Yeah, Don Munson, play-by-play voice of Clemson basketball, who was there calling the game last night, will join us at 4 o'clock. If you've got questions for Don,
Yes.
do me a favor. Shoot me a text at 71307. Shoot us a text at 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. Hit us up on the chat if you're watching on the online stream. Tell us that this message is for Don, so do us a favor so that we can make sure we catch it. We want to know what you want to know from Don Munson. Here's an interesting stat. Last night, every Tiger that saw the court scored. Dylan Hunter scored there with 15 seconds to go. He would have been the lone Tiger who didn't score. Clemson shot 49.2% from the floor as a team, 29 made field goals. It was just an all-around fantastic performance for the Clemson Tigers.
What I thought was really, really cool to see was when Clemson left the floor last night. Obviously, they're excited, right, because they won the game. But when they watch someone, and I feel terrible for not giving credit to who tweeted this out last night, but somebody put a video on Twitter of them kind of coming off of the floor back into the locker room. And they kind of just, to me, Diesel, looked businesslike. Like Clemson was not, like I said, they were happy they won, but
yeah,
man, they just kind of they walked off the floor. I was very impressed by that.
I think Graham Neff celebrated harder. We've all seen this video now, right?
Oh,
Graham
man.
Neff just losing his mind, not knowing what to do.
Do your best Graham Neff impression. I mean, it was what I do with my hands. It was great. It was fantastic. But I was really impressed by that, man. I really was. I thought the way that they it was businesslike. And again, they weren't supposed to be there. They had a great season. I wouldn't go as far as calling them a Cinderella, but we have a ton to get to. It was a fantastic game. I do want to echo what Diesel said. A lot of reaction coming in. You can get your thoughts in. 844-FAN-PHONE. Brian from Malden wants to chime in. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I got a little show that I do on YouTube or whatever and everything. And my prediction, I think Clemson right now, they were at this point earlier in the season where they were playing really well when they won at North Carolina, during that stretch. And I think that they've hit that at the right time. And I wouldn't be surprised if they made it to the championship game, man.
Wow.
They got everything.
Ooh.
I'm just saying right now, the confidence, and you saw it. That's why we're talking about it. The way that they're playing right now, I mean, what team? Alabama played, better. UConn, but I think that, in the right kind of game, if they can slow it down, right, they can play with either one of those teams, because they can be physical as well. So
I don't have, Brian, I don't have a problem against them with them playing Alabama because they already beat Alabama once. I believe they can beat Alabama. I do have a problem when you talk about like UConn or Houston. Those are where I kind of pump the brakes.
Well, UConn has proven, what they've done in this run, that they are a step above everybody else. But this is a game of basketball, and everybody can be beaten. Houston doesn't scare me as much because they just lost by 40 points, and we've seen during the season Houston has played sloppy. So I'm not where you can beat Houston in a one-night winner-take-all kind of thing. UConn, that might be another story.
Brian, thanks for the call, man. Great stuff. I do agree with you.
Yeah, UConn did lose. There was one time down the stretch where UConn lost. That's going to have to be the template that Brad Brownell uses if they make it that far. Look, there's no reason that Clemson can't get past Alabama, and we'll get to our Clemson-Alabama preview. Today is all reaction to Clemson-Arizona. But UConn, they are about as good as you could possibly get. I mean, they are OP at literally every single position, but they are not unbeatable. You have to go back to December 20th. They got beat by 15 by Seton Hall. So that's going to have to be what Brad Brownell goes back and looks at, see if he can figure out what happened as to why UConn got beat in that game. But Brian, yeah, we appreciate that phone call there. Remember, coming up at 4 o'clock, we'll chat with Don Munson, play-by-play voice of the Clemson Tigers. If you got questions you want to ask of Don Munson, please get them into us. Joseph Bright on the stream says that pass from Girard to Hunter at the end was an incredibly heads-up play. He knows he's one of the best free throw shooters in the country and would be fouled, but he saw the open man and made the smart basketball play. Yeah, that's true, Joseph. I can't figure out why Girard was left wide open there. I mean, he got the ball there with 15 seconds to play, and there's nobody probably within 15 to 20 feet of him, which is going to at least take 5 seconds for you to get over to him and get a hand on him. So now you're down to 10 seconds, and you're going to put one of the best free throw shooters in the country on the line, who had missed 2 earlier. He'd missed 2 out of 3 earlier in the game, but since then, I think he had made several in a row. But I mean, what are you going to get the ball back down 4 with 10 seconds to play? It didn't make any sense as to why they left him open. And then finding Dylan Hunter streaking down the court, that was just a
unbelievable play.
And put it on a dime to get the ball.
Couple of texts. You can text the show 71307. Start your message with the word fan, F-A-N. As a Gamecock, I expected Clemson to win, so I wasn't too upset when it actually happened. Congrats on the win, Tigers. Well, look at that, Diesel. That's what we want today.
Yeah.
A respectful Gamecock fan saying congrats to the Tigers. I love that, man.
The sky is falling.
It is. It really is. Another texter says when your point guard stinks and goes 0 from 9 from 3, you probably lose 99% of tourney games. I don't know that I'd say he stinks. Last night he was not good. The rest of the season, I don't know that you could say that he stinks. He did not play well last night. Arizona as a team, Diesel, I apologize if you already said that Arizona shot 17% from three-point land last night.
Not good.
17%.
See, now we got a texter coming after me. Texter says, Diesel, can you and your former co-host wanting to fire a coach that's in the Elite Eight make it make sense? Well, Texter, I'm not going to allow you to engage in revisionist history, okay? You know as well as I do, and we had many Clemson fans on these airwaves and on our social media posts and all over the message boards say that they were fed up and that they were tired of Brad Brownell. It's the inexplicable losses late down the stretch. It's the exit in the first round of the ACC tournament. Clemson looked cooked. You know it. I know it. You're trying to revise things after the fact. And look, I give Brad Brownell a tremendous amount of credit. I didn't think he had this in him. And here's what's going to have to happen, Cole. This is going to drive some Clemson fans nuts. This is going to drive some fans nuts.
Okay.
But I'm going to do this for a purpose.
All right.
I have picked against Clemson every round of the NCAA tournament.
You have.
I had them out against New Mexico in my personal bracket. I picked against them against Baylor. I picked against them in the Arizona game. But they've won every single time. So you know what I'm going to have to do?
Keep picking.
I'm going to have to pick against them. I'm going to have to pick Alabama. So it's sort of like a secret psy-up, a little switcheroo. You know, a pick for Alabama is secretly a pick for Clemson.
Texter says at least 2 more years of Brownell now. Congratulations, ? And then Joseph on the stream says, longtime Brownell hater here. I won't apologize for basing my feelings on 13 years of underperforming with this program, but he's earned the extension now. And yes, listen, this Brownell conversation, we can do this all show for 4 hours. The bottom line is you can't, like my phone's blew up today. People, you can't say anything about bad Brownell now. You have to look at what we're experiencing now in the current, present, future. The current, present day, not in the future, not in the past, but the current, present day is telling us that Brad Brownell has win. He has to win. He has won games. When Brad Brownell has had to win the big ones this year against North Carolina, he did. Against Alabama, he did. Against New Mexico, Baylor, he did. So judging off of this year is completely different than judging off of the past 15 years. It's okay to separate the two. You don't have to change your opinion on the past 15 years of Brad Brownell. It's okay to have an opinion on the past 15 years and an opinion on what's happening right now.
And I'm going to tell you the truth. If you're Clemson, if you're Graham Neff, you don't have to extend him because of this performance. You don't have to. He's still got 2 more years left on his deal. So if he continues to ride the roller coaster, Brad Brownell's going to make the decision for you. If he has another elite season next year, well, then maybe you're starting to see this thing trend in the right direction and you make the choice that you have to make. When we come back, I made a bold statement on Twitter last night. We'll see if you agree and see if you can argue against me. I said that Clemson basketball in 2023-24 is better than Clemson football, and it's not even a debate, but that's okay. I'll let you debate me anyway. We'll do that next here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. We are the Fan Upstate. Stephen Webb on the YouTube chat says Clemson, #1 in baseball, national champs in soccer, in the Elite Eight in basketball, 2 national championships in the last 10 years in football. Gymnastics first year was successful. The future is bright for us Tigers. And then Joseph Bright says, softball team has been great every season since they've existed too. It's hard to argue that. It's hard to argue that very many other programs holistically in America are having as much total success as Clemson Athletics is having. But you know as well as I do, the people will always view this through the lens of football. It always comes back to football.
Not in South Carolina.
I know it. It is the way that it is. I asked Chris Phillips a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I said, this is when, South Carolina basketball was still alive.
Yeah.
I asked, how many more seasons of this type of success would it take for South Carolina Gamecock fans to fully embrace being a basketball school? And he said, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. Now, that doesn't mean that a subset of fans won't embrace South Carolina basketball.
Sure.
He's just saying that Gamecock fans will always view their school as a football first kind of school.
One text that just came in. I've got to read it. I wouldn't. I told myself I wasn't going to read this, but I'm going to read it. I'd even go as far to argue that Arizona lost that game. Clemson didn't win it. P.J. Hall almost blew it with 3 fouls early. The good thing for Clemson, and then the text goes on, but I'm not even going to read the rest of the text because that's stupid. That's stupid.
Why don't you just preface your text with saying, I'm a Gamecock fan through and through?
I mean, come on.
You got to be able to
Clemson didn't win that game. You can't give them any credit, Diesel. That to me, guys, like,
that's one of the worst kinds of fans right
I
now.
get it.
You have to be objective.
Yeah, you do. And you're right. That is, even me as a host, I'm a fan of one of the two, but I have to be objective, right?
Sure.
Like, you cannot know basketball even to the nth degree and watch that game last night, Diesel, and go, oh, Arizona blew it. Arizona couldn't shoot the basketball. That doesn't mean they blew it. They couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
Blowing it is having a 10-point lead for the majority of the game and then going ice cold down the last 8 minutes of the game and then getting beat by 3. That's
everybody, Diesel, this is the biggest thing that drives me nuts in sports. Everyone is so quick to say, oh, that team couldn't hit a shot. Clemson didn't do anything. Arizona couldn't hit a shot. Well, hey, basketball guy, have you ever thought about maybe the reason that team didn't look good last night was because Clemson's defense was really good? Like, watch the game. Go watch the game one more time. Just go watch it start to end, wire to wire. Watch the game and decide for yourself without your orange or green or whatever color team you pull for, garnet and black glasses. Watch the game and tell me that Brad Brownell's defense, especially in the first half, wasn't fantastic last night, man. You have to give Clemson credit. You can't say that this was Arizona let it out. No, give Clemson credit where they deserve it, man. They deserved it last night. If they don't deserve it, don't give them credit. But last night, by golly, they deserved it.
One major stat that we haven't looked at was Clemson had 30 defensive rebounds in the game. They were all over the glass.
But that's Arizona it's because Arizona just wasn't there. That's not, you don't give Clemson credit for getting 30 boards, Diesel. You know, Gamecock fan will say, no, you don't give them credit. They just were in the right place at the right time.
I don't have a lot of respect for those kind of
Come on.
Who can't see that.
What did you say last night on Twitter? I want to know what stirred this conversation up.
Yeah, last night on Twitter, I posted the very simple tweet, and I don't even understand exactly why this is so controversial, but you went mind blown. I said, quote, Clemson basketball was greater than Clemson football in 2023-24, and it's not even a debate.
So can I simplify this just for the listener out there that has no idea, the dumbest of the dumbest, right? Last season for Clemson football.
Yeah.
This past season compared to this season for Clemson basketball. That's what you're comparing?
Yeah.
Well, why is that even a question?
Right. The 2023 calendar year for football was not as good as a 2023 calendar year for basketball. Like right now, this absolutely feels true. And it is absolutely true for the season. You look back at 2023 for Clemson football, they missed the CFP. Their most important position at quarterback is a huge question mark. Brad Brownell is effectively using the transfer portal. Dabo isn't.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think there's really any debate there. However, there is your Clemson football guy who's going to be Clemson football guy till he lies in his grave that will tell you.
I think there's a subset
You're
of
wrong.
Clemson fans and South Carolina fans. I've always argued that Clemson and South Carolina fans are exactly the same, just different sides of the same coin. I believe that there is a subset of Clemson and South Carolina basketball fan or football fans who are afraid that the basketball programs are going to get so good that it will pull attention away from their football.
Okay,
programs.
so I will take your question, your tweet, and I'll spin it and ask you a question. Is Clemson basketball in a better state than Clemson football right now?
Right now, at this moment, March 29th, 2024, yeah.
As a whole?
As a whole, no. No, because we talked about it the last couple of days. PJ Hall, graduating. Chase Hunter, graduating. Joe Girard III, graduating. So 3 of the biggest pieces on this team are graduating.
I hear you.
We're going to see last year, all for this season, all Brad Brownell had to do was go out and get one guy in the transfer portal. One guy.
That's true.
Joe Girard, a difference maker on this team.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
We'll see if the guys coming up after him. Ian Shefflin is not going to be that dude who's going to go out and score you 30 points every night. He is a fantastic basketball player. Man, I don't know that I've seen anybody in the college game who is as good of an interior passer as Shefflin.
He's good.
My God. I saw him get the ball a couple of times last night. I was like, there's no way he's giving this ball up.
Yeah.
He's coughing this ball up. And then he would find somebody. He's
He's
elite at that.
Well, I think.
But with those 3 guys leaving and having to replace so much, I think next year for Clemson basketball will almost assuredly be a step back because you're an Elite 8 basketball team. If you don't achieve that, technically speaking, it's a step back. But it's going to be a big time rebuild next year.
So let me ask this question, because I hear what you're saying in terms of Clemson losing Hall and their key guys, right?
Yeah.
So is Clemson Diesel just not a place where you can have elite turnover that quickly? Because like I go to this, UConn men's basketball, they lost 4 of 5 starters last year. This year, they only had 1 starter on their team. South Carolina women's basketball, last year to this year, completely new 5. Yeah. UConn's still in it. They're the best team in basketball. South Carolina women's basketball, they're the best team in basketball. Both of those programs had a ton of turnover. Why can't that happen at Clemson?
Brad Brownell hasn't shown us that he can recruit multiple transfer portal guys and get them to gel in one season. I'm not saying that he can't do it. I'm just saying we haven't.
So you're not saying
you.
So I guess my question to you is, and I was having this conversation with someone earlier this morning. Are you saying that you don't believe it can be done at Clemson consistently?
No. I'm saying we've never seen Brad Brownell.
So you just don't have faith that Brad can do it?
No, I didn't say that. I'm just saying we haven't seen him do it before.
Right.
I'm not saying he can't do it at all. I'm saying we've never seen him do it before.
Well,
Joey B on the stream says Chef was a high school quarterback. The passing makes sense.
It does.
Didn't know that about him.
It does make sense.
Didn't know that about him. Now, here's the one thing about basketball. This is what makes it so incredibly different from football with regards to the transfer portal. You really only need 1, 2, at most 3 great transfer guys. If you've got good players around him, a guy like Joe Girard III can come in and make a big time impact. So maybe Brad, all he really needs to get is 2 guys. He gets 2 guys out of the portal, and he's shown with Girard that Clemson can be a quality transfer portal destination. So it takes far fewer guys to change your season in basketball than it does in football.
It does.
Obviously, we know with Dabo and his decision to essentially not use the transfer portal, they say that, we've looked at guys in the portal, we've made offers to guys in the portal, but they're just not accepting our offers.
The reason I asked you about, do you believe Brad can do it? You said that you're not necessarily saying he can't do it next year and get these transfer portal guys in. You're saying, well, because he hadn't done it in the past. Well, my point is, Diesel, do we not have enough of a sample size with Brad Brownell? All these years he's been here, counter to what you were saying yesterday, like
We have a sample size of 1 when it comes to him.
Well,
bringing
I'm
in
just
transfer
saying
portal guys.
you
That's
have a
Joe Girard.
huge sample size of Brad Brownell life at Clemson, right? So if we talk about can he repeat this next year, excuse me, based off of what I'm saying is based off of the last 15, the sample size of Brad Brownell's past years at Clemson would tell you no, that he can't do it again next year,
for
right?
a majority of those seasons, he didn't have the transfer portal and NIL to get the guys.
Yeah, but
really
neither did
needed.
anybody else.
That's true. But see, those schools already, a lot of the schools that were elite for the longest time, they were elite because they had decades and decades of reputation building.
Yeah.
Clemson basketball hadn't had that. There was a tiny bit of Clemson basketball reputation over the course of their history, but not the kind
Not consistent.
Not the kind of reputation that's going to get elite guys. Not the type of reputation that a Zion Williamson signs with Clemson rather than going out of state to do.
Right.
You know, we had talked about Zion had interest in Clemson before he eventually signed with Duke. At least that's what we heard.
Mm-hmm.
But what did he do? He went out of state. He went to Duke. You know, Clemson doesn't have the reputation of being able to get guys like that. And so as soon as you start to get those guys, you get more of those guys. It's always hardest to get the first and the second one. And then it's really easy to get, or not really easy, but easier to get 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Sure.
You build on that.
Sure.
But now you have a guy that builds his resume at a smaller school. What's the guy's name? He played at Wofford for a couple of seasons. And then transferred to South Carolina last year.
BJ Mack.
Yeah, BJ Mack. He's the type of guy that, you know, he plays at a Wofford. He develops a little bit, and then he slides very well into a role at a South Carolina or at a Clemson, or, you know, if you can go out and get guys like that.
Texter says, Clemson fan here. Chef looked a little messy last night. 2 left feet. Lisa chiming in. We appreciate the text. Another texter says, simplistically, I think. Is that what he says? I can't read. My eyes are
simplistically, I think it could be said that Clemson football fell far short of expectations, while basketball ultimately far exceeded them.
Well, simplistically, I think you're right. They did. They did exceed them.
Well, this texter, and the texter right below that says Clemson football finished 6th in the ACC. Basketball finished 5th. So technically, the basketball team was better. Low bar, says the texter.
I like this comment. The buzzer on Facebook says, right, not getting guys from South Carolina really hurting the Clemson basketball legacy. Well, where's PJ Hall from?
Yeah.
Come on. Their best player all season long. Look, can we just say this?
I'm blanking on his name now. He plays in the NBA. The other player from South Carolina that nobody here recruited.
Gigi?
No, not Gigi. Plays in the NBA now. Played for Oklahoma City. Help me out. Name? Come on, somebody give me a name here. Anybody?
From you're saying he was from South Carolina?
Yeah, he was from South Carolina. Nobody in South Carolina recruited him. He ended up going to like Wichita or Tulsa or something.
Well, John Morant was from South Carolina.
Morant.
That's what you're talking about. Yeah. John was from South Carolina.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah.
But Clemson and South Carolina both let Ja get out of the state,
right?
Because they didn't recruit him.
All right, that's a deep dark hole we could get into. I think it's a great conversation. We'll get back to it. However, I will say this: when you talk about the state of Brad Brownell, there's so much conversation to be had. I just think we have to be very, very intentional about making sure that everyone understands that you can judge chapters, right? Like, even speaking with someone's life, like their personal life, you can't judge their whole life off of 1 year. Like, it's okay to look at different chapters. And for Brad Brownell, if you only knew Clemson basketball this year, if you were just born and all of a sudden came out from under a rock and said, "Oh, I'm going to start following Clemson this year," you'd be like, "Man, this guy's really good X's and O's." My point is, it's okay to have an opinion about this year as well as an opinion about the last 15. You don't have to combine the two.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly. I always like to look at the last 2-3 years. How are you trending right now? But you can also there is some validity here to this. Brad Brownell in his tenure at Clemson has had those great seasons. 2013, he won 23 games.
Yeah,
made the NIT semifinal, and then the next year won 16. The next year won 17. The next year won 17. Then in 2017, he won 25 games, got to the Sweet 16. 20 games again in 2018, which is not great. I mean, especially when you're calling it a 20-14 record overall. That's not, I mean, we talk about 20 games like it's a huge deal. It's not a huge deal to win 20 games in college.
Well, not
basketball,
when
but
you're
you
first.
follow that up with 16, 16, and 17 win seasons.
Yeah.
Last year, 23 wins. This year, 24 wins, and in the Elite Eight.
Listen, 20 wins, Diesel. When you have a schedule of the first 8 games, the way that Clemson and South Carolina both schedule their first 8, 20's not. I don't want to say 20's not what it used to be, but
it's like calling it a 10. It's like
a 10-win season in football.
10-win football season.
I like that.
Winning 10 wins and 10 games in football. It's not easy. I'm not saying that it's easy, but I'm not necessarily saying that that's this massive thing that you've got to brag about.
All right, coming up next.
Oh God, see Rev Red over here. I mean,
what do you say
on the text line? Brad is the only Clemson coach to win at UNC. Man, that is an extremely low bar. It's great that you finally got it.
Yeah, finally.
But it's like that's not. I don't think it's as big a deal as you think it is.
I don't think we can judge games anymore in basketball tournaments, especially March Madness, based on paper statistics. Clemson last night, on paper, not the better team. I'll tell you the second team that lost last night that was the better on paper team. Right here, it's Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. This is the Fan Upstate. Sometimes in sports, Diesel, we spend a lot of time talking about teams on paper. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. But I do think last night was a great example of the two teams that won were not better on paper. I don't think Clemson was a better team on paper than Arizona. And I don't think Alabama was a better team on paper than North Carolina. However, you see in the tournament style games that on paper really doesn't matter, right? So where I'm going with this is I thought North Carolina had more talent than anybody other than UConn in the tournament when it came to who was left in the Sweet 16. Last night, Alabama, North Carolina, a fantastic game. North Carolina just starts off tremendous. They were playing really good basketball. I kind of felt like it may go the same way the Clemson game went, but it didn't. Alabama just all of a sudden turned it on, came out of the gates in the second half playing really well, and then we get all of a sudden to the very end of the game. North Carolina takes a 1-point lead, and I'm watching thinking, okay, they were down 4. They come back, they take a 1-point lead, and I'm thinking, man, that was impressive. You were down 4. Now all of a sudden you might have this thing. And what does North Carolina do on the very next possession after the defensive rebound? They go down the floor with a minute or so to play, and Jalen Withers, not even 4 seconds into the shot clock, the big man jacks up a 3. Alabama gets the basketball. The next possession, late rotation by Withers on defense. Baycott wasn't there either. Alabama scores, takes the lead. Last night, North Carolina was the better basketball team on paper. I just felt like the way that these teams matched up, Baycott and Withers were going to be dominant enough to take care of business for the Tar Heels and get Hubert Davis to the Elite Eight. However, if Clemson wouldn't have won last night, Diesel, the storyline we'd be talking about right now is, man, Hubert Davis, I mean, his first year was fantastic, but now all of a sudden, do we start having questions about if Hubert Davis can be the guy at North Carolina?
That's a tale of two different levels of expectation.
It is.
The level of expectation at South Carolina, like what Hubert Davis has done at North Carolina would achieve him a lifetime contract.
Sure.
At Clemson.
Sure.
And what Brad Brownell has done at Clemson would have seen him fired, 10 years ago at North Carolina.
Sure.
I mean, it's wild to see how that happens. There were times down the stretch where North Carolina just didn't play well. I mean, they lost back in February on the 13th to Syracuse, and they didn't look good against them. They didn't look particularly great against Clemson when they played them in Chapel Hill. So North Carolina showed themselves to be vulnerable at times. Now, obviously, they went on a massive run, and they were playing really elite basketball leading up to that point. I mean, they smacked Virginia Tech around. Yeah. They absolutely dominated Notre Dame late in the season. So North Carolina was playing about as good a basketball as they could have been coming into this game. And, it seems like one of those brain fart moments when the big guy puts up the shot, like he saw this and he thinks, ooh, this is going to be my moment.
Yeah.
This is going to be the moment where everybody looks at me and says, oh, I'm an NBA talent guy. And you just look at yourself, put your hands on your head and you say, oh my God, what is this dude doing?
It was terrible. I want to hear, what did it sound like from the play-by-play when Alabama knocked off 1 seed North Carolina?
Put him up 3, and he missed it. And it's Nelson got the block. Game over. Alabama, the Sweet 16 is no longer sour. They advance to the Elite Eight for the first time in 20 years.
Now that audio is good. This audio is better. This is the post-game interview.
All right.
With Alabama head coach Nate Oates, and he's responding to something that Charles Barkley said. And have you noticed just how often Charles Barkley's comments come up in post-game interviews, in on-court interviews, in the post-game?
Because he runs his mouth.
But that's what we love him for.
It is.
We love him for that. So Charles Barkley had said that Alabama, this basketball team was frail. I mean, I don't know how much more insulting you can be.
And he
call
said,
the basketball team frail.
I love that he said congratulations to Dabo Swinney last night too. After Clemson wins, like Charles.
I mean,
I don't believe him.
I couldn't stop laughing when Charles Barkley said that the Chicago Bulls would be a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yes,
I love this dude. He can say anything he wants, but here's Nate Oates in his post-game presser on the court talking about Charles Barkley. People don't think these guys pay attention. They do.
How about this response?
That was great. I mean, Grant stepped up. We were able to guard Bacon a little better one-on-one. You know, Charles Barkley called us frail. I don't think he was frail tonight. He showed up tonight. But yeah, they stepped up big in the second half.
After that,
they were big. They were really big last night. Going against a guy like Bacot, like they did guard him well. I don't think he had 20 last night. But, man, I'll tell you what, I was so impressed with Sears. I thought he was the best player on the floor last night for Alabama, Mark Spears. He was incredible. He's a senior, so obviously they'll lose him. And then down the stretch for Alabama, Grant Nelson just played his butt off. And he was not scared of anything, any matchup with Armando Bacot. He was not scared at all. Alabama, much like I said with Clemson, they played loose and free last night. I don't know why certain teams have a tendency to play tight, but I have in my notes from last night's game, North Carolina looked lost at times in those final minutes.
I mean, it's just a fantastic performance by Alabama there. I mean, the big difference in this game was their interior shooting, 48% from the field. Outside of that, you look at the numbers, they weren't that different.
No.
They weren't that different, and that's a testament to Alabama being able to stick around with, on paper, a better basketball team. When we come back, we bring on the man who was in the room, who was calling the game last night for the Clemson Tigers, Don Munson, Director of Communications for Clemson Athletics. He's on the show next. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. We are the Fan Upstate.
I think you know better than career coaches making 100.
It's our pleasure to be joined right now by the Director of Communications for Clemson Athletics, Don Munson, play-by-play voice. You hear him in football. You hear him on basketball. We love him around here. Thank you so much, Don, for taking the time to join us today. You've got a real busy travel schedule, I'm sure, but, man, it's got to be a whirlwind and just so much fun to talk about a 77-72 win that puts Clemson in the Elite Eight for the first time since 1980. Thanks for joining the show.
Absolutely. I don't have any travel schedule. I'm just sitting here in LA and walking back and forth to the Coliseum for stuff. So it's my travel schedule is pretty light right now.
Don, here we are again, Clemson, Alabama. We'll get into the Arizona thing, but how much does it amuse you that you get to keep calling Clemson, Alabama games across multiple sports time and time again? The familiarity's got to be fun. Dealing with those guys over there has got to be fun. It's almost like the universe wills it.
Yeah, and obviously it's become a rivalry, and it's funny, I've seen Clemson, Alabama in baseball. Obviously, I've seen it in football. Now I get to, this will be the second time this season that we see it in basketball. And really the first time that it happened, the only reason that happened, ACC, SEC, matchup, and we probably don't play that game unless it's scheduled that way because of that little ACC, SEC matchup that they did. So it's interesting, but it does seem like that Clemson and Alabama are constantly butting heads, and I think for both schools it's fun.
Don, I want to ask you this. After the Baylor game, the first comment that Brad Brownell had to give was the word defense. That was what he was most impressed by. We talked about it yesterday on this program, going into last night's game against Arizona, the style of play, the way they could score the basketball, that Clemson's defense was once again going to have to be the storyline. Do you feel like that for 2, maybe 3 games in a row now, the number one storyline of how Clemson is getting it done is their defense?
Well, I'm not shocked at that at all. I mean, just look at the stats, and I've been shouting this from the mountaintops. When Clemson holds a opponent now to under 40% shooting, they're 17-0. So yeah, it's going to be about defense. I mean, if you don't think that that's the common denominator in Clemson winning games, then you're just overlooking the fact. So yeah, Clemson's got to play good defense to be able to win.
Don, before the Baylor game, Clemson was 2-5 on the season in one-possession games. I don't know what the technical definition of a one-possession game is, but I say if it's a one-possession under a minute to play, that's a one-possession game. Now, he's gone 2 in a row against Baylor and last night against Arizona. What do you think has clicked in the last couple of games that as things get tight down the stretch, and then both of those games against Baylor and against Arizona, Clemson got out to big leads and let it get tight down the stretch. But talk about the mental fortitude of this team and Brad Brownell's theories and policies and just getting them to circle the wagons there late in the game when it's really tight.
Yeah, I think that what you're seeing is that you have older players that are on the floor and they're making plays. I mean, they're executing what they're supposed to execute, and being able to do that and playing with confidence. I think there's confidence in that, and playing with a lead. I mean, it's difficult to come from behind. I don't care if you're just down 2 at halftime. It's difficult to play from behind. And Clemson, has trailed for a total of 50 seconds in 3 games. So they've been playing ahead of schedule. They've been playing ahead of these people. And so yeah, I think that that's probably more good talk for fan base, and also it makes fan bases obviously very, very nervous. It makes some media folks, I think, very, very nervous. But I think that what we're seeing is that, yeah, this is a Clemson bunch, and the 5 that are on the floor coming down the stretch know how to take care of business. And had there been some moments this season when that hasn't been the case? Absolutely. But you know what? They learned from their mistakes. They were able to grow from that. And so I think that those experiences actually help them in what has happened here in the last couple of ball games.
Don Munson joining us on the program. Don, I want to ask you this. The time that you've been covering sports in general, do you know of a sport when you get to March Madness that is unique as college basketball can be? And what I mean by that is 16 days ago, Clemson lost to Boston College. They were a loss away in the NCAA tournament from Clemson fans wanting the head basketball coach gone, right? Let's just call it like it, call it like we see it there. If they would have lost 2 in a row, things could have gotten hairy for Brad Brownell. Do you recall, or can you put your finger on what makes this sport so unique on how quickly things can change, how quickly storylines can change? Because fast forward 16 days later, and Brad Brownell's job looks pretty dang safe.
It's a story that continues to play out, though, time after time after time. I mean, you go back, I sit there and look at things, and I think, I'm 62, so I've probably seen a little bit more than you all have. But I can think of when Jacksonville, for instance, made a run. Now, back in these days when Jacksonville was playing, they only had to win, I think, 3 games to get to the national final game. But Artis Gilmore in Jacksonville play against UCLA for the national championship. All right, so Jacksonville wasn't a known factor. Jacksonville got hot at the right time. NC State in '83, they have to win the ACC tournament even to qualify for the NCAA tournament. They get sent out west. They win a double overtime game in their first round. They win a nail biter in the second round. They knock off Ralph Sampson in Virginia in the Western Regional Final to make it to the Final Four. They end up winning it all on the pit in Albuquerque. This is Syracuse a couple of years ago with Joseph Girard on the team. They weren't playing very well coming out of the ACC tournament. They made a run to the Sweet 16. It's something that you see happen over and over again in basketball, and it's the old theory: a team gets hot and they just get difficult to put away. Stephen Curry and Davidson were a great example of that. Who thought Davidson was going to make a run to the Elite Eight, and they had a chance actually to make it to the Final Four, lost a close game to make it to the Final Four. So that I think is the thing that everybody loves about this tournament, whether it's a major program or a small program. There's always a team or two that's going to do this in the tournament.
Don Munson, you hear him on the call each and every broadcast for Clemson Athletics. Don, Stephen Webb, one of our great P1 viewers on our web stream, pointed this out earlier. He compiled this. Clemson, top 5 in baseball, national champions in soccer, in the Elite Eight in basketball, 2 national championships in the last decade in football. Gymnastics great in its first year. Softball, white hot in its young career there. I'm going to give you an opportunity to say it, Don, and I'm okay with it if you want to homer this up. Is Clemson Athletics the number 1 athletics department in the country right now?
I don't know if they're number 1, because Clemson has, 18 sports, I think is what they're running. You have some schools that are running 32. Like Boston College in our league I believe they run 32 sports. That's a heavy load to carry, particularly when you consider what it costs just for one student to enroll and go to Boston College. But I would say we're as good as anybody. I mean, I would say right now we're as good as anybody. And I can tell you that being on campus, being inside the athletic department, and being a part of it, that it permeates. That one sport has a way to feed off of another, and all the head coaches are all kind of in line with one another. But the most beautiful thing about Clemson is that the whole campus is in line with one another. Academics and athletics have found a way really to balance themselves on campus. It comes from the lead man. It comes from President Clements. Certainly it starts there. The board of trustees, the athletic director, and Graham Neff, they are all synced and on the same page. There's no infighting. There's no jealousy. There's nothing about it, because they all realize that Clemson's success, is across a wide swath. And there are a few colleges right now that are doing it better than Clemson.
Don, can you go into just a little more detail about the buzz between these programs? Like, can you describe what it's like inside these buildings when athletes from different sports cross paths, they run into each other? Can you let us a little into that a little bit more?
Well, what I can tell you, it's funny because back in the old days, all the departments, all the sports were all in the same building. Now every sport has their own building. Men's and women's tennis have their building, men's and women's soccer, their building, baseball, their building, football, basketball, it all goes. But what the head coaches have been able to do is been able to find a way. There's actually a council meeting that they have every week that involves every sport and either a head coach or one of the administrators from that sport, but usually all the head coaches are there, and that includes the head football coach at Clemson. Now, Dabo's not there as often as he would like to be, but he's there pretty regularly, and I think that probably helps create as much as like King Arthur's Round Table. There's Graham Neff is certainly Arthur, but then he's got all of his knights that are around him, and they're all on the same page, and they all work together to support the other. Whether it's trading phone calls or just sending a text message or whatever. I mean, it's the reason you see, social media yesterday, Dabo Swinney FaceTiming with Joseph Girard, because Brad Brownell had Dabo Swinney be part of the recruiting process to get Joseph Girard to Clemson. They went over and spent time at Swinney's house. Swinney got into a shooting contest with Girard. Who's not going to fall in love with that kind of stuff?
Hey, Don, back in November, these two teams, Clemson and Alabama, they squared off. Clemson came out on top. Do you think when you look at this game upcoming between Clemson and Alabama, do you think coaches are able to pull anything from the last contest, or is it because it was so far in the past, it's almost a new page, new chapter?
Oh, no, you're able to pull things because you're able to see personnel live and in person. It's totally different when you watch it on tape than when you're actually seeing it in person. Point in case, Baylor. When Brad Brownell went into the game against Baylor, he was really concerned were his guards going to be able to contain Baylor's guards, particularly when they were trying to turn the corner and get downhill. On tape and on film, what he thought is that he thought Baylor's guards were too quick. But he quickly realized within the first 3 to 5 minutes of that game that their guards couldn't get downhill on his guards. And so he made a slight adjustment with what they were going to do defensively. And so it worked. Alabama, he's already seen the personnel. So he kind of knows a little bit from that end. And then obviously they were able to actually watch them in person play last night against North Carolina. So I think there are some things that they can pull from that game, but there are also some additional things that that they learned last night and that they'll find also on tape.
Don, we've talked many times on these airwaves about expectations with the basketball program, with the football program. Do you believe that what they've achieved as of today, an Elite Eight, and what they still have the potential to achieve going forward, do you think this season has the potential to increase or raise the expectations for basketball permanently going forward?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, expectations have already been raised. I mean, just by doing this. That's just the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the fan base. That's even the nature of coaches and administrators. Absolutely, the bar has been raised because you've done it. So now go do it again, and that's how you build. That's how you build programs. Now you just got to. It's the consistency. How consistent can you get? What's the support going to be like? I think that Coach Brownell is able now to turn to supporters and turn to his own athletic director and, ask for a little bit more, because with a little bit more, we can do even more. There was the report that came out, of the Sweet 16 teams as far as their operating budget. The lowest was Long Beach State at $7.8 million, and the next lowest, number 15, was Clemson, sitting there at $8 million. Duke atop the list at $28 million. So when you're operating at that much of a deficit, there's a reason that Duke has been Duke, but there now is more of a reason that Clemson can try to build and become, their own their own program and what they can actually do. I think that expectations have definitely been raised.
Don, you talked there about the operating budget going forward, and it's going to be fascinating to see. And I don't want to go down this path yet until the season is over, but it's going to be fascinating to see how the NIL boosters react next season, because it certainly is going to be a need to go back to that for the 2024-25 season. Since we've got you here for just a couple of more minutes, what's on the agenda in LA while you're there? How's Don Munson going to stay loose in the City of Angels?
Well, I'm actually about to get on a bus here and head over to practice. The team's going to be leaving the team motel here in about 15 minutes. So they're going to go over and do a closed practice over there. And then they have a media session that they'll meet, and that'll probably take about another hour and a half. So the next 3 hours, I'll be back over and watching practice, and then going to all the media stuff and just kind of listening. And seeing what's going on. There's just a little bit of game prep as we get ready for the broadcast tomorrow. And then tonight I'll actually go out and have a good dinner with the guys on the broadcast team, and then we'll come back and I'll start really starting on my spotting boards, and I'll continue that throughout the morning and go to some morning meetings as well with the basketball team as they go over their points of emphasis, and then get ready for getting on air at 8 o'clock and for 8:49 East Coast time tip-off.
And Don, last question from me here. I always think of things after the fact, like, man, I should have asked Don Munson about this. What is something really fascinating floating around in your head that we haven't asked you about?
I don't know that there's, I really don't know there's much, because everything's getting pretty much covered. I mean, this is a flat out open book when you get to this point. I mean, everybody knows about everything about you. It's going to be, I guess, what to me is going to be interesting tomorrow is to see who kind of shows up to the game. Because I think there are people that are almost afraid to come to the game because they'll think that they'll jinx it if they come to the game. There are others that, nope, I want to be here, to see this moment in time. There are people that are going to put it off. No, I'll wait till they go to the Final Four in Phoenix, but that's not guaranteed. I mean, that's obviously that's not guaranteed. So I would tell you that if you're on the fence about whether to be here or not, you need to get off that fence and come out and soak up the atmosphere from that. And I would guess maybe that's the one thing you haven't asked me about is the atmosphere out here in the Western Regional. And it was really interesting last night because when we walked to the building, all of us were talking. We thought it was going to be, a pro-Arizona crowd because Arizona just being an hour away by plane, 5 hours away by car. There's a large Arizona base that is here in Los Angeles. But the shocking thing to me was it was a building that was controlled by North Carolina fans. And North Carolina showed out in mass for their game. And I think that Clemson had some of those North Carolina people behind them and cheering for them, and it kind of evened things out. But the atmosphere in the building has been really, really good. And obviously a building that is absolutely legendary when you walk into it.
Don, enjoy our chats each and every time we have a chance to bring you on. And thank you for coming on the first time we ask you on a brand new show. You could have said Wire to Wire. I don't know that show. Diesel and Cole, I don't know those guys. I'm not coming on that show. But, man, you're old faithful. You're here each and every time, and we thank you so much for your time.
Dude, you never turn down an opportunity to spread the gospel. And they're good to spread the gospel to the Clemson Tigers. Go Tigers.
Can't wait to hear you on the call. 8:49 tomorrow night. Number 6, Clemson. Number 4, Alabama. That is Don Munson. You hear him on the call of Clemson football, of Clemson basketball. He is just a great friend of the station and the show. Thank you so much to Don.
Good stuff, man. Really good stuff. A lot to react to from what Don said. I am glad, Diesel, that he brought up the atmosphere last night because it was hard to gauge from the TV.
You watch on TV, there was that huge section of empty seats
and
directly behind the bench.
2 games in a row has been like that. It's not in Clemson's favor. All right, what games tonight are the most intriguing? Diesel has a question for me about putting money on a game. Why would I ever do that? Up next on Wire to Wire. As good as the games were last night, as good as the Clemson-Arizona game was, as good as the North Carolina-Alabama game was, I am here to tell you that tonight might be the icing on the cake, Diesel.
Yeah.
Tonight's Friday games are so intriguing. When you look at the NC States of the world, you have a question on there about whether you take NC State over Duke. I think NC State of the teams tonight is the most fascinating because they're kind of like on the verge of being a Cinderella to me. So NC State, Marquette tonight, Gonzaga, Purdue, Duke, and Houston, Creighton, Tennessee. Of the 4 games, which of them jumps off to you when you look at the 4 games, the slate tonight in the Sweet 16?
Well, you have to look at the Creighton-Tennessee game because Tennessee, they've had their struggles in this tournament. They barely snuck past Texas earlier in the tournament. And I just look at them as a very beatable team. I mean,
you think Tennessee's beatable?
Tennessee's very good.
Okay.
Dalton Knecht is fascinating to watch. I really enjoy watching him play. But against a team like Creighton that can put up a whole lot of points, I think you got to look at that and say that, man, this is a potential upset in the 3-2 matchup. But my question for you, Cole, is if I gave you 2-1 odds, meaning I'm going to pay you once if Duke wins, but I'm going to pay you twice if NC State wins, who would you put your money on? I got you win.
I hear you.
You win $100 if Duke wins. I'm going to pay you $200 if you'll put your money on NC State and they win.
That is a great question. Here's what I'll tell you. Marquette, I think, is the best team tonight other than maybe Purdue. I really, really have been impressed with Marquette. I really think NC State has done a tremendous job of getting to this point. Duke Houston, on the other hand, I felt like Houston was the unbeatable team. My Final Four consisted of Houston and Purdue and UConn. I don't remember who the 4th team was, but I'll tell you this. If you're telling me I can get double better odds putting my money on NC State rather than Duke, that's a great question because both are underdogs. NC State's an 11, playing a 2 in Marquette. Duke's a 4, playing a 1 in Houston. Diesel, I would probably take Duke. I would probably take the Duke Blue Devils and not double my money. I just don't see
like a surer bet.
Well, I think so. I don't see NC State beating Marquette. I really don't. Marquette's been so good, 27-9 coming into this game. NC State, have they been good? Yeah, they've been really, really well. They were the hottest team in the ACC tournament. They've played exceptional basketball, and I have to give them a ton of credit. However, I think the Wolfpack, I think their tremendous season, I think that ends tonight. I think if NC State were to win, they'd be considered a Cinderella, but I think NC State loses tonight. So if I'm going to answer your question, I will take the 1-1 odds, Diesel. I'll take Duke having to upset Houston. I still think Houston's the best team. Like, oh, man. Duke, Houston and Marquette to me are the top 2 teams tonight. I would pick Houston by a half a point over Marquette. I just think Duke has a better chance of beating Houston than I do NC State beating Marquette. Both should be fantastic games. All 4 games tonight are super, super intriguing. Purdue may be the more underrated team that everybody's really talking about, where everybody's talking about UConn, but Purdue's kind of like sitting here as a 1 seed, like, hey, nobody's talking about us.
Well, everybody expected Purdue to fail.
They did.
That's been a team that has lost in the tournament year after year after year, lost early. Tennessee has been that same kind of team.
So if I have to pick, I like Duke. Would you agree, or would you put 2-1 on NC State?
Oh, I like betting on the sure thing. I
Me too.
I don't like gambling. That feels like more of a gamble taking NC State to upset Marquette. I mean, if I go back to my original bracket, and I know I didn't ask you to look at this before this, so I'm asking you just kind of put your thinking cap on, see if you can remember. Do you remember how well you did on this eastern side of the bracket? I got a little weird in the round of 32, and I had Purdue losing. I had Purdue going down.
Did you really?
Yeah, I didn't have I had them losing to Utah State. That's one of the wild upsets I decided to choose.
On the east side, you said?
Smart. Yeah.
So
sorry, on the south and the Midwest.
So I had Kansas beating Purdue in the Sweet 16.
Okay.
Obviously, that's not going to happen because Kansas didn't even make it out. But
to this point, I've got Houston Duke, the matchup correct. I had Marquette making it here.
I did too.
I had Gonzaga making it here. And then I had the Creighton, Tennessee matchup correct.
So I picked Houston and Duke to be here. So I had that one right.
Yeah, I got 6 out of 8 in the Sweet 16 on these two, on the right side of the bracket, the South and Midwest.
Yeah, I had UConn over Auburn. And then I didn't have Illinois. I did have Iowa State. I had BYU beating Iowa State in the Sweet 16. And then I had North Carolina beating SMC, not Alabama, but Bama beat North Carolina. Then I had Baylor. Listen to this. It gets worse. Mine's terrible. My bracket's trash. I didn't have Clemson or Arizona. I had Baylor over Nevada.
Yeah, I had Baylor, North Carolina in the Elite Eight, and I had North Carolina advancing into the Final Four, losing to Auburn. So my East and West is completely buried right now.
So my Elite Eight, Diesel, I had UConn, BYU, North Carolina, Baylor, Houston, Marquette, Tennessee, Kansas. And then my Final Four, I had UConn, UNC, and Houston, Tennessee. So my Final Four.
I'm there with you. I had Houston, Tennessee as well.
You did?
Yeah.
Houston, Tennessee, that could very well happen.
And that's in your original bracket.
Original bracket.
16 repick.
Right. Yes. My original bracket I had in the Final Four, one more time, Houston, Tennessee, UConn, and North Carolina. I have UConn winning the whole thing in my original bracket. However, the only one I got wrong was North Carolina. So that, you know what? I don't like how the brackets are done. Like, I'm in this bracket challenge, Diesel, and I'm toward the bottom because of all my picks that, were busted. However, I'm the only one left that had UConn winning it, and I have 3 of my 4 teams left. So
you could still make it up on the back end if
you think so?
If enough other people had UConn not winning the whole thing.
I
seems
think
like you could make it up.
I think you should be rewarded greatly for picking the winner right. Like, out of 62, 64, whatever teams to start this thing, when this bracket comes out, if you pick the winner of the whole thing, it doesn't matter what happened in those previous games in your bracket. I think you should be rewarded. Like, maybe
you just want to game the system so you can win.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So
let me look real quick.
It's not in the spirit of competition.
No.
This is in the spirit of selfishness.
Selfishness, absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm right now in my bracket challenge 15th out of 21, which is not good.
No.
But, Diesel, of the 15 ahead of me, or the 14 ahead of me, rather, there was only one other person that picked UConn to win it all.
You still have the ability to score points on them if UConn wins the whole thing.
Right.
They can't earn any more points.
So I need Houston, Tennessee, and UConn to all get to the Final Four like I thought. Obviously, North Carolina won't get there, but you're right, I could make some. I don't know if I can make up enough to get back to the top, but I feel like you should be rewarded if you pick the winner.
JD has a really interesting point here on the chat. He says, NC State finally got to rest. I think that may cost them their momentum.
You know what? That is a good point.
They were playing really hot. They were playing really good basketball. ESPN's analytics here gives Marquette a 77% chance to win this game. NC State has played as hot as you possibly can, winning, the last 5 straight games. Marquette did lose one there to UConn back on March 16th in their conference championship, in their conference tournament, 73-57. So, this is what NC State's going to have to do. They're going to have to look at that game against UConn to see if they can figure out what UConn did and try to replicate that.
NC State Marquette, I like Marquette to win. That's the 709 game. In the South region, any disagreement there, Diesel? Marquette over NC State, or are you going with the Wolfpack?
No, I'm going Marquette. I mean, I think they've had a phenomenal run, but I think the story ultimately comes to an end here. I mean, could you imagine if both Duke and NC State somehow find a way to advance in this thing? We would have 3. This is,
I don't want to see Duke advance.
In the world, neither do I. Neither do I. I want to see them fall flat on their faces. I want to see them go crying back to their little hole that's not, in any way, shape, or form a part of Durham. You got Durham. Some of it's kind of crummy. There's some parts that are trying to come back. But then you got Duke that's its own little northeastern campus right there in the heart of Durham. It's just weird. But, I mean, so many people have talked about the demise of the ACC and how far the ACC has fallen. Can you just imagine?
Oh, my gosh.
Can you just imagine if Duke, NC State, and Clemson all make it
Oh,
into the
my
Elite
word.
Eight and had North Carolina done the same?
Yeah, that's true. Half of the Elite Eight would be ACC.
Yeah. But, of course, then if Duke and NC State both make it to the Elite Eight, one of them is going to have to eliminate the other to get to the Final Four.
Diesel, that NC State Marquette game, that game tonight is the game with the largest point spread of the 4 games. NC State is a 7.5-point dog, very close to what Clemson started out as last night. I'll be honest with you.
Do we know if that line's moved?
No, right now it's 7.5.
I think that line, not moved off 7.5.
Oh, from what it started from?
Yesterday. I think it's been bet up.
It may have. It may have.
And which is interesting because that's the opposite of what happened with
correct.
With the Clemson-Arizona spread. That was a 7.5-point spread that got bet down to 6.5. So there's a lot of money coming in on Clemson yesterday.
I really, 7.5 points in basketball when you get to the Sweet 16, that's a lot of points to me. But I'll be honest with you, Diesel. I kind of like Marquette tonight. I kind of like Marquette to cover.
To cover. Man, I mean, we're getting down to this point where you don't want to see blowouts. You want to see good basketball games, but you have to assume somebody's going to get smoked, right? Somebody's going to have to get smoked deep in the tournament like this.
Purdue Gonzaga, as much as I love Mark Few, Purdue's a 5.5-point favorite over Gonzaga, which I kind of feel like is pretty accurate. I really do. I think Purdue wins probably 75-70, something like that. Duke Houston, the Devils are a 4.5-point underdog to the 1 seed Houston.
If there was going to be a blowout, I hope it's that one.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Nobody likes Duke.
They are by far the collectively the most punchable bunch of faces you've ever seen.
And then lastly, Tennessee's a 3.5-point favorite over Creighton at 10:09 tonight. That is the drink your energy drink or coffee game. That one will probably be midnight or so before it ends.
Do you think when Duke starts recruiting players, is that one of the criteria? That's like, out of all these kids we're looking at,
you have to trip people?
Who most looks like they need to get their ass kicked?
Yeah.
And they say, okay, let's get that guy.
I thought you were talking about playing dirty.
Well, yeah, that too. But yeah.
Texter says, can we call overrated yet on the Big 12? They really played poorly, especially if Houston loses tonight. Listen, if Houston loses tonight, absolutely. The Big 12 didn't play well. You're right. But yes, if Houston drops the ball tonight against Duke, yes, it will be time to sweep the Big 12 back to where they belong. Texter also says Clemson busted my bracket because I had Baylor in the championship against Houston. I am a Clemson fan, says Joey. Billy says, I went to Duke's Botanical Gardens and their chapel. It's a really nice campus. Yeah, that's wonderful. But who likes Duke? They have great gardens.
Little live update here. The real opening day.
Oh, Diesel,
Baseball,
we're having a good show. No,
Atlanta
no.
Braves. You got to give. You got to give updates.
No.
Give updates, Cole.
Please don't.
Zach Wheeler holding the Braves down. Look, it's still early, man.
But you can't go undefeated if you lose the first.
2-0, top of the 6th. Runner on second for the Braves. I can't tell who that is up to bat. Ozuna. Ozuna's up to bat. Maybe he can get his first dinger of the year and tie this ball game up. When we come back, we're doing something special and new. It's something we call the Dunce Chronicles. We'll talk about 3 idiots in life doing things that make you go, huh? Why would anybody be that stupid? That's coming up next here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, emanating live from the Ingalls Market Studios. You know, Cole, there are two things in this world that we are absolutely not in short supply of. Number one, dentist office. Like there's like 1,000,001 out there. Every time you turn around, there's a new one being built on a corner somewhere. And dumbasses. We never run out of them.
I've never one time thought, man, there's a lot of dentist offices around here.
I think that all the time. Like what, if anybody can give us an idea of what happened about 5 years ago, all of a sudden, like in my town growing up, there was one dentist office. And I lived in a big town, basically the size of Greenville by itself. There was no Spartanburg or Anderson nearby, but they're everywhere now. We had one. Now they're everywhere. This is a brand new segment that we're doing here on Wire to Wire. We want you to tell us if you enjoy it or if you think it's stupid and we should stop doing it. We are calling it the Dunce Chronicles. 3 stories of morons ignoramus out there doing their thing. We joke about it. We point out just how stupid they are. And then we all get a good laugh. So
let's hear it.
If you like this, let us know. Dunce number 1, Playboy model. So you know she's going to be smart. Shannon Teresa Marie Schwartz. I don't know what's up with 4 names.
They have a lot of money.
Was charged with, if she had a lot of money, why would she be taking her clothes off for Playboy?
Well, I'm just saying.
She'd be
the
doing
more
it
money
on
you have, I
OnlyFans.
guess the more names you get.
She'd be getting real money doing it on OnlyFans. Playboy model Shannon Teresa Marie Schwartz was charged with 1 count of bribery of a public official and 1 count of obstruction of justice after she allegedly offered a Homeland Security agent a $5,000 bribe to convince a judge to release her gun-toting boyfriend from Honolulu's Federal Detention Center. So she clearly has great choice in men. Mm-hmm. He was arrested for having a ghost gun. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but he was arrested again and charged with being a felon in possession of 205 rounds of .223 caliber ammo. She had reached out to this Homeland Security agent, asked if he could help. She reached out dozens of times via phone calls, text messages, emails, etc. She persisted. And even after the agent told her that he couldn't help, she kept trying. She said, I need your help. I got to get him. I got to get him out of jail. I got to get him out of jail. He agreed to meet with her. It was a sting. He recorded her attempts on a phone, which was a government supplied listening device. And well, now she's going to jail.
So he had what kind of gun on him?
He had a ghost gun.
What is that?
I assume it means it's an unregistered gun.
Okay.
I don't know if it means, I don't know if it was like one of the plastic, like 3D printed guns. I don't know if they're even capable of shooting .223 ammo, but regardless, a Playboy playmate offered $5,000. That's not even a big bribe. The hell is wrong with you? If you want to bribe somebody, you got to come a little stronger than $5,000. And like, so here's the problem with her idea here. I'm going to give this guy $5,000, which is not a whole lot of money, to a Homeland Security agent, a federal agent, to go talk to somebody else to convince them to let my boyfriend out of jail. In what way is this going to go well for you? Like, what did she think was going to happen here?
Yeah, not real smart.
No,
not on her part or his part for having a gun that wasn't. Oh, it's a gun you build yourself.
Okay. Probably a series of unregistered parts that come together and make a gun that is now unregistered. Okay. So next up in our Dunce Chronicles, Sean Puffy Diddy, P. Diddy, don't confuse him with Luke Combs, allegedly had multiple sex workers on retainer. He allegedly paid Instagram model Jade Ramey and 3 other women a monthly stipend for sex. A lawsuit was filed by a producer in the music business named Rodney Lil Rod Jones. And these 3 women were on Diddy's payroll for sex. You're Puff Daddy. What do you need to pay women for sex for?
Is this the guy who got on the plane and left?
You don't know who Puff Daddy is?
No, I saw a video.
But yes, he did do that.
Is that him?
Yeah, he did do that. But this guy is an internationally known musician. Remember back in the day, rock stars had a different girl in every city? I mean, why does this not feel a lot like the Deshaun Watson situation? One of them was an Instagram influencer.
People with money, man.
Another one was like 50 Cent's ex. I mean, like, you got this kind of money I guess if you've gone through life where everything is available to you, you just got to flash cash like it's nothing to you.
Yeah.
You forget that it has value and that it has legal consequences when you give it to somebody for certain things.
Well, a lot of times people with money are the last ones to think about the laws, We've seen that, hadn't we?
Oh, yeah.
I have money.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need to worry about that.
Stephen Webb says, I was a lab technician and made dentures for 8 years. Trust me, there are not enough dentists. Trey Davis says, mo money, mo problems.
That's true.
He's accused of much more than that. Well, we hadn't got into that part of the story.
Yeah, we'll keep that off the
Yeah. And our third and final dunce of the day, a Canadian woman was sentenced to pay $5,000 in fines after she accidentally gave out weed edibles to trick-or-treaters in Winnipeg last Halloween.
Ooh, I like that one. So tell me,
Yeah.
she gave out edibles as her candy?
Yeah, so she accidentally gave out edibles as her candy. She wasn't.
How do you accidentally do
She
it?
wasn't. I'll tell you how she did it. She wasn't trying to drug the little kitties of Winnipeg, Canada. It was an accident. So what happened here is she ran out of candy. She had a bowl of candy at the door. Bunch of little kids come up. She's like feeling the pressure. Oh my God. I've got a little ghost. I've got a zombie. I've got a demon, and I've got a hobo, but I only have 3 Snicker bars. What am I going to do?
She reached in the cookie jar?
She ran to her closet, and she had both regular candy and weed candy in her closet.
Oh.
She had the weed candy stored in real candy wrappers. I assume because it's illegal there. I don't know the weed laws in Winnipeg.
Why did she go to the trouble of putting in real wrappers?
Because I guess she wanted to hide it. Like really, you think a drug sniffing dog is not going to be able to smell his way through an empty Nerds bag? But she rushed to the closet in her house, which contained regular candy and weed edibles, looking for extra candy to give out. She accidentally grabbed the wrong ones.
Oof.
And she was giving out weed candy to the little kitties.
Wonder how she got caught, though.
Because parents were reporting, oh my God, my kids are stoned.
Yeah, but you go to like 30 houses.
Yeah, but if she's giving it out to a whole bunch of kids, it's easy to triangulate where it all came from.
Oh, that's bad. That's bad.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever heard of that. I don't know that I've ever heard of getting the kids a little juiced, if you will.
So the question is, who's the biggest dunce of the day? Is it the Playboy model who tried to bribe a federal agent with $5,000 to get her boy toy out of jail? Is it Puffy, who is who's been paying sex workers a monthly stipend for their sex work? Or is it the Canadian woman that actually accidentally gave out weed gummies?
I think it's the Canadian woman.
Now that's an honest mistake.
No,
no. She wasn't trying to drug the kids. She was trying to drug herself. She accidentally drugged the kids
while she was drugged.
Well, we don't know that. You don't know that. See, you have to say allegedly. So get in the comment section on the YouTube chat. We're streaming on Facebook, on the Fan Upstate YouTube, on my YouTube, Diesel on Radio, on the Fans X account. Who is the biggest dunce of the day? Madcraft says it's number 1, the Playboy Playmate. But number 3 was not an accident. See, you guys think the worst of people. What's up with this? Who hurt you, Cole? Who hurt you, Madcraft? I assure you that people who buy drugs, and I'm not one of them, but people who buy drugs, they love their drugs. They don't want to give their drugs out to other people. Like, you realize how expensive drugs are?
No, I don't.
It is. It's expensive. So people aren't just giving it away to your kids. Come on. Trey Davis, Puffy is probably guilty of worse stuff than the Canadian woman. Well, prostitution. Yeah. And that's the truth. So there you go.
I would still go with the Canadian woman.
This is Wire to Wire, Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate. When we come back, we put up our dukes. We go after each other. It's the 5 o'clock fight on the Fan Upstate.
On the fan.
Broadcasting live here from the Ingalls Markets Studios on Carlington Road in Greenville. If you're listening to the show, tell us where you're listening from. If you're watching on the stream, tell us where you're watching from. We know JD's watching from his TV. He's got us blown up on a bigger screen. Sorry about that, man. There's nothing we can do.
That's great, by the way.
Yeah,
and the Braves, just so you know, as we said a minute ago, it was 2-0 Phillies. The Braves have tied it up. Adam Duvall with a double that scored Orlando Arcia and Michael Harris. And now coming up in the bottom of the 7th, we have a tie game. So both starting pitchers are Dunzo. Strider, Dunzo, and Wheeler Dunzo. Be interesting to see on opening day if
the Braves.
Yeah, the Braves bullpen can pull it out. Let's do it, man.
Yeah, if you don't win today, the season is over.
Well, you can't go undefeated unless you win the first one, right? That's what I say.
The Atlanta Braves have won 100 games 2 years in a row. That's really difficult to repeat. I think Vegas set their over-under at 102.5. That's a big time expectation. That is tough to bet the over on that and expect a team to win more than 102 baseball games. The best teams in the business, struggle to win 100 games. And, we talked about it the other day about when you are the best team and you get the bye, then you get a little bit rusty. So maybe it's not the best thing to push for 100 wins in the regular season. Maybe if you can take it just a little bit easier. I mean, you got a slightly tougher path that you got to play in the first round of the Major League Baseball playoffs, but you're playing meaningful baseball. When you're playing hot baseball, it certainly seems to behoove you to keep playing meaningful baseball.
Well, in the last 2 years, the Braves fans have learned that the 100 games a year are nice. They're wonderful. They're great, but, it means absolutely nothing if you get bounced in the first round like they did last year by the who? Once again, the Phillies.
Trey Davis asks, will we be doing an Ingalls show live this Wednesday? No, not this Wednesday. We'll be back out next Wednesday.
That's right.
So not this coming Wednesday, but the next Wednesday. Now it is time for Cole and I to put up our dukes, to go head-to-head, to trade blows. We pick opposite sides of an argument, and we get into it so that you can tell us who wins. It is time right here, right now, for the 5 o'clock fight.
It's an all-out slugfest, and nobody's leaving unscathed. 3 topics, 1 winner. It's the 5 o'clock fight on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
Always accepting your fights. You tell us what you want us to duke it out about. We'll, of course, add it to the show, possibly even for the very next day. Hit me up at Diesel at the Fan Upstate. Just put the word fight as the subject of your text. Here we go with punch number 1.
Round 1, fight.
The question, is it a disappointing season if the Braves don't win the World Series in 2024? Big ask.
That's a big question.
World Series win or bust for the Atlanta Braves. Kill the bed music on the intro.
I got you.
We got both playing at the same time. Is it a disappointing season if the Atlanta Braves don't win the World Series in 2024? I say yes. This team is built to win World Series championships. They are built to win right now. And I say you better get it done. You know why? Because you don't win World Series without pitching. And 3 of Atlanta's key pitchers become free agents in 2025. Max Fried, Charlie Morton, and A.J. Minter all become free agents in 2025. Now, maybe you can lock them down in the long run, but maybe you don't. Maybe they go somewhere else. You got to win now.
So I would say making it to the World Series is what the Braves want this year. Obviously, winning it would be spectacular, but you can't get bounced in the first round. Like you did last year, like you did the year before. You win a lot of games in the regular season, but then that equals to nothing. So I would say for the Atlanta Braves, it'll be a disappointment if they don't get to the World Series. Not necessarily win the World Series, but it'll be disappointing if they don't get there. If they get there, as a fan, I'll be happy because at the end of the day, baseball at the top is really, really good. Whether you're playing LA or the Orioles or whoever you would face, down the stretch. LA obviously before the World Series, but if you were to get the World Series and face the Orioles or, maybe even the Rangers again, whoever it would be, I want to get there, right? Obviously you want to win the World Series, but getting there would mean you have to go through LA. And if you could beat LA, that would be absolutely wonderful.
How many participation trophies do you have in your house right now? You seem to love participation trophies.
No,
you got to get you got to get the big trophy or nothing at all. It is time now for fight number 2.
Round 2, fight.
Is it harder to win a college national championship in football or in basketball?
It is definitely harder to win a national championship in basketball. With the amount of games that you have to play and the amount of times that you have to play on short notice, basketball is the much tougher sport in college to win a national championship. Now that football is expanding the playoffs, maybe that'll change over the next few years. But as of right now, winning is hard in March. Getting to the tournament is tough. Not only getting there, but being able to sustain success in the tournament, that's really, really tough. Without a doubt, college basketball is the more difficult sport to win a national championship.
100% wrong. 100% wrong. It is football. You have to win probably 10 games in the regular season to even get into the future 12-team playoff, right? You possibly have to win your conference championship game as well. There will be teams who get in who didn't even play in their conference championship game. And you possibly have to win up to 3 tournament games, depending on whether or not you get the bye. So you may be required to win 14 games.
Oh, wow.
This is tough, man.
Yeah, especially in the ACC. It's tough. That's tough.
But no, how
do you do that in the ACC?
Once you get to, if you're in your conference championship game, you have to beat the second best team in your
North
conference.
Carolina. That's tough. That's tough.
Then you have to go on a run of beating 3 straight top 12 ranked teams. That's tough. That's really tough.
In the
I
ACC,
say football, you say basketball.
Definitely basketball. Because once you get to the postseason, man, the competition, it ramps up.
And one more to go. It's time for the final fight.
Final round, fight.
Will golf ever be as big as it was during the Tiger Woods era? We saw just how massive golf became as Tiger became an international superstar. Will we ever see that again? I say, yes, we will. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't think there's anybody in the current crop of PGA or LIV golfers who are going to be that level of superstar. But if it can happen with a Tiger, it can happen again. Golf is a game that, it's weird. People say the purses are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, yet the game is shrinking. I don't really understand how the metrics of that work, but somebody will come out of the ether and be that elite star like Tiger Woods again.
No way. No way. There's no one even close. No one even close. Golf in the Tiger era will never be replicated. Never be replicated. I don't care how good Charlie Woods is. The Tiger era will never be replicated, and it will never be as big as it was. We've never seen, when Tiger Woods was in his heyday, that was the mecca of golf. It was the Michael Jordan Bulls. It was the biggest golf has ever been. So no, that will never be replicated.
3 rounds, 3 fights. Who won overall? Get in the comment section on the streams, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, or in the text line at 71307. Excuse me. Start your text with keyword fan. Tell us who won on today's 5 o'clock fight.
What do you want Diesel and Cole Bryson to fight about next?
If you've got an ass, I'll kick it.
Submit your topics to Diesel at thefanupstate.com. Subject line, fight on the Fan Upstate.
And we appreciate JD in Simpsonville, who gave us 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 fight ideas for next week on the show. I can guarantee that one of these is going to really piss you off, Cole.
Oh, let's hear it.
One of these, well, I can't tell you. We don't need to preview.
Oh.
The fight. You can read the fight. It's on the rundown. You can read what it is.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, like, this is going to be a big deal fight next week. I can assure you of that. It is Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, broadcasting live here from the Ingalls Market Studios, right here, 25 Garlington Road in Greenville. You can always call in and be a part of the show on the Anderson Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. That's 844-326-3663. However you choose to listen to the show, we appreciate you being a part of it, whether you're listening live over the air at 97.7 FM in Greenville or 97.1 FM in Spartanburg. If you're listening on your phone with the free Odyssey app, if you're listening after the fact on any one of the myriad of ways for you to podcast the show, whether that's on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, however you listen, we thank you so, so very much.
You know what? That is an interesting conversation, though, when it comes to Tiger Woods, if that'll ever be replicated. Like, we talked about baseball guy yesterday in the Shohei Ohtani news. Golf guy, Diesel, 100% will sit here and tell you, oh, yeah. It's cool. Because golf guy knows golf guy cares about golf. Nobody else cares about golf, right? Golf guy cares about golf. But golf and baseball have the same problem or similar problem in terms of, they're followed by baseball guy and golf guy.
Yeah.
But they're not followed by the outside. Now, people do watch the Masters, right? But, man, like, I just remember Tiger Woods and how big that was for the game of golf. I mean, I compare it to Michael Jordan and the Bulls because it almost felt that way. It almost felt like it was the Mecca. And are there players out there who are good? Sure, there are players out there who are good, but who's gonna take the reins and be the next Tiger? That's tough, man. That's tough.
Mad Craft here says just because they don't market players correctly anymore doesn't mean Scotty Scheffler doesn't exist. He could take on Liv by himself. Mad, nobody's saying that Scotty Scheffler is not an elite world-class level golfer. He absolutely is, but Scotty Scheffler is not marketable in the way that Tiger Woods was marketable. Now, there's certainly an element of a black golfer coming out of nowhere and being elite. I mean, when we're talking about the early 90s, when Tiger Woods came, it changed the game.
Yeah.
It absolutely did. And we hadn't seen a golfer. Like, golf was a boring, stuffy sport before that. It was Fred Couples. It was Payne Stewart. We were in kind of a lull there for a while. We didn't have the era of Jack Nicklaus before that. I mean, we had a star. Oh gosh, now I'm blanking on his name. The dude who would smoke all the time and get hammered drunk.
Oh, John Daly.
John Daly, yeah. People love John Daly, but you couldn't market John Daly as the face of the sport. He was the heel of the sport. That's what made him interesting. That's what made him fun and compelling.
As much as people wanted him to be.
Right, but
great as John Daly is,
you weren't gonna get little kids into golf for the first time because they see John Daly stumbling down the eighth fairway, because he hadn't had his third beer yet over the course of the game. Trey Davis said Adam Sandler is in a sequel to Happy Gilmore, maybe a young person inspired to be a golfer the way Tiger Woods was inspired by the original Happy Gilmore. Trey, sorry, man.
Adam Sandler is a sequel to Happy Gilmore. I don't know.
Are you saying Adam Sandler needs to do a sequel to Happy Gilmore because Happy Gilmore inspired people to golf? I'm not sure.
Maybe that's what he's saying.
Madcraft says John Daly taught me that drunk golf is good golf.
Yeah, says 90.
John Daly to teach you that.
Says 90% of golfers. Oh man, I like it though. Keep the ideas coming because they are good. They are good ideas. Any update on the Braves?
Yeah, top of the eighth, runner on third, still a 2-2 ball game. With one out, the Braves have a chance here to take the lead in the top of the eighth on their opening day. Everybody else's second day of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Braves fans, as Braves fans, we all got kind of gypped by the rain there. We got Michael Harris the second up to bat. Does that say he's 2 for 3 on the day? Sorry, this TV
2 for 3 on the day.
Tiny.
He is.
Didn't I tell you that Michael Harris the second was going to be an all-star in 2024?
Look at those cleats, man. Wow. He's got the neon green. I love Michael Harris. I really do. Michael Harris coming out when he entered the Braves scene, he was, I don't want to say he was hyped up as in a Ronald Acuna, but he had so much hype around him that he has to be like the guy. I'm not saying he has to be Acuna as he singles into center field.
And the Braves take the lead.
There we go.
3-2.
That's all it
Atlanta
took,
takes
man.
the lead.
There we go. So the hope and dream of an undefeated season ain't over yet.
Hope springs eternal in Atlanta.
I love it. I love it.
How's this going to work? How are these cleats and these sleeves going to work when you got the teams that have the green screen background? Are you going to see ads on their arms?
You might. Very well could. It wouldn't surprise me. Texter says a bad day of golf is a good day of drinking. That's Trey. Thank you, Trey. We appreciate that.
Cole, you don't play golf.
I'm not a golf guy. No, I don't
Have you
do
ever
things.
Played a round of golf?
Yeah, I've tried. It's
a hard game.
Yeah, and listen, the way I am,
golf and sex, two things you don't have to be good at to enjoy.
Well, if I'm not good at something, I just like golf frustrates me. It frustrates me so much. Anytime I've ever tried to play, it's just too much. And it's to me, it's always seemed like it was more frustrating than it was enjoyable. Everybody says, "Oh, I'm gonna go spend the day on the golf course and enjoy my day."
Well, let me ask.
Never done that.
The first time you were with a woman, were you any good at it?
Who's to say I'm not still good, Diesel?
Who's to say
born
good. Who's to say you've ever tried?
So you think I got to practice more?
Well, don't we all? Don't we all want to practice more at that?
But how much? Let me ask you this though.
Golf.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So how much golf? I mean, seriously, how much practice? Like for just an average Joe, the time commitment and financial commitment it takes to get good at golf. I mean, that's a lot.
What's your definition of good? Going out there and shooting an 85, 90? That's pretty good. It's fun to go out and shoot 90 golf.
Well, the problem is I wouldn't even be close.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. It would take a lot. It would take a lot of training. It would take a lot for me to be able to get good. It really would.
So you're the type of guy, would you give up midway through a round? Would you play eight and drive?
Yeah, I just drive the
11?
golf. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think you're the kind of guy who would have a collapsing fishing pole stuffed in your bag. And then if the round's not going well, you just pull over, cast a couple lines in.
I've done the same thing with bowling. I hate bowling because I stink at it so much. I have just about probably 99% Diesel of the games I've ever bowled. I just quit. I can't do it. I cannot stand to be, like I said, if I'm not good at it, it frustrates me more than it does make it enjoyable.
Alvarado just walked the following batter after Michael Harris. Now we got 2 on, 1 out, top of the 8th. Braves have a chance here to blow this
Let's
thing
go.
wide open.
That'd be great. That would be fantastic. Coming up next on Wire to Wire, if you have just tuned into the program for the first time, we appreciate you doing so. It is Wire to Wire, a brand new show on the Fan Upstate with the Braves playing. We're going to hit some daily wires, tell you what you need to get caught up on, but we're also going to give you a little bit more in depth on what we actually expect the Braves to do this season. Diesel hinted at 100 games a few minutes ago. I'll tell you, Diesel, if I think that's plausible or not. Up next, right here on Wire to Wire. If you missed it a few minutes ago, we did let you know that the Atlanta Braves have taken a 3-2 lead. Also going on right now, the South Carolina Gamecocks. Sweet 16, Indiana up in the Big Apple. Well, close enough. Not New York City, but Albany. So New York. 10-9 is the score. South Carolina leading Indiana. Close one. I guess the question with this game, Diesel, is how long does it stay close? I'm going to say halftime. After that, it's not close.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed in the scoring early in this game. South Carolina not really getting out of the gate fast. There's 4.5 minutes to go in the first quarter. They've only scored 12 points.
Ooh, now it's tied.
And now it's tied. Indiana just hit a big 3 to tie this ball game up. The 4 and the 1 seed, 4:20 to go, tied South Carolina and Indiana. Again, the Braves are up 3-2 now on the Phillies, top of the 8th, 2 outs. Atlanta's hitting the ball really well in this game. 10 hits to the Phillies, 4. Phillies do have a home run. The Braves have put 14 guys on base. So the Atlanta Braves offensive woes to the offense is coming out firing in game number 1 here. Duvall up to bat, 1 for 1 on the day with 2 RBIs. Let's see if he can get another one home here and see if the Atlanta Braves can extend this lead and just kind of bust this one wide open here on the Atlanta Braves opening day.
Well, you talk about them hitting the ball well and Philadelphia not. That kind of goes back to what we talked about yesterday. Like, hopefully the most consistent part of this team can be the bullpen, because even if Strider does get banged up a little bit like he did today, right? He allowed 2 hits. If he does get banged up a little bit, the bullpen hopefully is your saving grace to be able to come in and say, all right, let's stop them. Let's shut them out. I could very well see the game ending. It's still 3-2, you said, Diesel? It wouldn't surprise me if the game ended 3-2, as long as the Braves bullpen continues to do what they're doing. But speaking of the Braves, go ahead real quick.
Trey Davis corrects himself from earlier. He says Happy Gilmore 2 is legit in the works. The Shooter McGavin actor, he's talking about Christopher McDonald, has signed on to be in the movie. I don't know, man. Like, I love Happy Gilmore. I grew up on Happy Gilmore. You know as well as I do, Trey, that when they take a long time to do a sequel, it's never great. Like, we all remember how insanely good Dumb and Dumber was, and then how bad the second movie was with 2 different actors. And then they brought back both Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey for Dumb and Dumber or whatever, and it was just weird. It was awful. Like, these guys were old now.
Well, the second's usually
really strange. The second Joe Dirt movie was bad because they took 15 years between movies. I mean, I trust Adam Sandler to make a funny movie because Adam Sandler is Adam Sandler. But I don't know. Well, I'm a little nervous about that.
All right, coming up this season for the Atlanta Braves, when we look at them as a whole, we hinted at it in the 5 o'clock fight. And you said something, Diesel, that was interesting about the Braves winning 100 games. And if you would take the over and under, if I bet on over under 100, I would probably most seasons take the under, because things can happen throughout the course of a season, right? Like, you can lose your ace or a couple of really solid hitters, and all of a sudden that might derail. You might go on a pretty rough streak in June. That may derail, hitting that over. As good as the Atlanta Braves were last year, Diesel, they were 105-61. That's in the regular season and the playoffs. So 105 wins. They were 5 wins over 100. It's tough to ever say, oh, yeah, they're going to win 100 games. However, with this Braves lineup, you do, and they're pitching, as we've hinted at, you kind of do feel like they should win 100 games. It'll be tough to do, but in the NL, in the NL East especially, with the division kind of up in the air, Philadelphia is always going to be a sneaky team. Washington's kind of rebuild mode. Miami's, or Florida, Miami's not really that good. I think the Braves, in the division that they're in, I think they probably will get close this season. I see them winning 90, 95, 96.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you could probably even take it a little bit easy and not push for 100+ wins again, and not burn your starting rotation out throughout the regular season. I mean, we've talked so much about how important Chris Sale could be to this team. But if they continue to push him out there and try to get him to pitch 5 or 6 innings every time he takes the bump, well, then he's very likely to injure himself again. Max Fried, Spencer Strider, Charlie Morton, Chris Sale, Reynaldo Lopez sitting now as the Braves 5-man rotation. Max Fried, more of a guy who's going to give you more innings deeper into games than some of these other dudes. But I mean, maybe the target for the Atlanta Braves should be that 95 mark and not pushing for 100 wins again. And, you rely a little bit more on the bullpen guys, Iglesias, AJ Mentor, Jimenez. Maybe you take it a little bit easier and rest your starters, and hopefully you get them for the playoffs when it really matters.
Well, last year, they won so many games last year. You do forget about the lumps, and the Braves are going to go through lumps. Hopefully not many of them. The only way I could see them going through a serious lump is like serious injury or, a couple of your starters go down on the IR, something to that effect.
And the Braves have extended their lead now 4-2 for the Atlanta Braves. So just giving you a little live update on that.
Oh, Acuna getting in the action now. He singled to left. Harris scored again. Duvall moved to second and Darno to third. That's good. That's really good. Top of the 8th, 2-run lead. That's another thing. When you have a comfortable lead with the pitching that you have, you feel like you can get 2 runs ahead if you're the Braves. In most games, you should be able to close out. I do think it's interesting, though. We talked about it a couple of days ago, Diesel, on the Atlanta Braves. What player didn't make the All-Star team last year that will this year? And really, because of process of elimination, Michael Harris was the only one that didn't last year. And we both agree that he could have a really good season this year. Yeah. What is he in now? His 30, I think, third year? Third or fourth. I just think a player like him will take a ginormous leap at some point.
This is his second full season.
Is that it?
Yeah, second full season. 2022.
Oh, my word.
He came in, I think in
mid-May
in 2022. 2023, he batted in the 9 spot most of the season, and I think he's set to have a big year.
Wow. Couple of daily wires. If you're just tuning into the program, South Carolina baseball lost 4-3 at Alabama, and Clemson also lost last night. So South Carolina baseball and Clemson both dropping a Thursday night series opener, and that Clemson loss was to Miami. South Carolina women underway right now. We'll keep you updated on that. Joe Girard, Diesel, last night, something that we hadn't talked about, I thought was really impressive. And again, Clemson hadn't been known for producing, 3-point elite basketball players, but Joe Girard setting the single season record for 103 pointers in one season last night. That was fantastic. I mean, that is big time in the ACC. That's a great record for Joe Girard.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pull in a stat here. How many players have hit 103 pointers in a full season? But
you mean like ever?
Yeah. If I had to,
that's a good question.
If I had to give you the basketball and say, how many shots would it take you to hit 100 3-pointers? One sitting, you can't rest, because I think after this many shots, your arm would be tired, your shoulder would be tired. You wouldn't be able to jump anymore. How many shots do you think it would take to hit 100 3-pointers?
No rest at all? Like a few minutes,
you could take a
few seconds.
Here.
Okay. Yeah. Just to be safe, I'd probably say 1,000.
1,000?
1,000 3-pointers. Wouldn't you? 1,000 3-pointers?
I've
hit 100
basketball for the first time a couple of weeks back, and I'm hitting maybe 1 out of 11 or 12 threes.
So that'd be about 1,200.
It's hard.
Yeah.
You don't realize, you watch on TV, you watch from this high up angle, it doesn't look like it's that far. These guys are obviously the best at the best of this, but you don't realize just how far a 3-pointer is.
Well, I was dead wrong. 2 minutes ago, I asked the question, how long would it take for South Carolina to bust this thing wide open? I said halftime. Well, 39 seconds to go now in the first quarter. It's 26-15. And as well as I do, when South Carolina gets a double-digit lead, you might as well close the book. Close the book, because you're right. It's over. Indiana, a really good team. We'll get to this a little bit later on, but I think it's fascinating to think about and look and predict what teams left remaining could actually give South Carolina a run. Obviously, anytime they play LSU, it's a really good game. But Notre Dame, to me, watching them, I think they're a team that could give South Carolina a really, really good run.
Not to take anything away from Joe Girard and hitting 100 3-pointers in a season.
Oh, no.
But take a wild guess as to what the single season record since 1986. I don't know why it picks 1986 as the year, but this is just the website. What is the single season record for 3-pointers in college basketball? Since
my
86.
first thought was, is that when the 3-point line was put into college? Surely not.
No, it has to be later than that. You should know one of these, or you should have a sense of this, because one of them is one of the top 5 is from your favorite small school right here in the upstate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Fletcher McGee.
Wow. He's top 5?
He's top 5.
No kidding.
He's number 4.
In college basketball?
Tied for 3rd.
No kidding.
In a single season.
That's right, because oh my word. I just forgot. Like, when you say ever's a big word. Since 1986.
Since 86.
That's still a long time.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of good 3-point shooters come through.
Years.
Fletcher McGee is tied for 3rd?
Tied for 3rd.
I did not realize that. All right, who's 1 and 2? Wait. I think I do remember the number. It was a lot more than 100.
I'll be real with you. Steph Curry is tied for 1st. Tied for 1st.
You want me to guess a number?
Yeah.
It's going to be stupid. It's going to be a stupid number. I'll say 300.
Wow. Okay. Now you're just shooting for the stars.
I told you it was going to be a dumb number.
It's 162. Darius McGee, who played for Liberty in 2022-23. So he set the record just 2 years ago at Liberty. 162 made 3-pointers. Steph Curry ties that for his 2007-2008 season. Antoine Davis at Detroit Mercy hit 159. Fletcher McGee hit 158 in 2018-2019. Let's see if we got any other big names. Fletcher McGee did it again in 2017-18. He hit 148. Fletcher McGee, man, that dude was just lights out.
He was until the Kentucky game.
That's true. That's true.
Don't want to go there. That's incredible, though. I mean, I thought it was going to be a ginormous number because of what you said about Girard, but no, that is impressive. It really is. The first Clemson player to ever hit 100 in a season. Great question here. Will there ever be another Clemson player, or how long until another Clemson basketball player hits 100?
Oh, I think it'll happen relatively soon.
Really?
If Brad Brownell becomes the type of program, if he runs Clemson in a way that is transfer portal heavy, you just go out there and get yourself a sharpshooter, hit 100 3-pointers in a season. That's
just a few years.
It's going to happen soon.
Really?
I think it's going to happen
soon. Good question.
When we come back, we'll talk about the game last night. The Clemson Tigers advanced to the Elite Eight for the first time in 44 years. Our reactions to the game, what we saw, what moments we thought were pivotal. That's coming up next on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, and live in the Ingalls Market studio.
Great.
Both the Lady Gamecocks and the Atlanta Braves have blown it wide open. If you are a Gamecock fan who also resides and is from right here in South Carolina, you got to love today.
Wow.
9-2. The Atlanta Braves have cleared the bases through a series of hits and wild pitches and now have a 7-run lead in the bottom of the 8th.
Wow. Here's their you talk about third world problems, Diesel. Braves fan, game over already. Well, I'll say already. 8th inning. No way they're going to come back down 9-2. You said it best. If you're a Braves fan and a Gamecock fan, today is a great day. South Carolina women's dominating right now early on. So, heck of a start.
So, in the 8th inning, Michael Harris singled to center.
Okay.
Matt Olson scored off of that. Acuna singled to left. Harris scored off of that. Duvall moved up to second. Darno went to third. Then Darno scored on a wild pitch. Acuna moved up to second. Duvall moved up to third. Riley walked. Duvall scores. Albies moves up. Acuna moves up. Olsen doubled to right. Acuna and Riley both score.
That is awesome.
Acuna, Riley, and Albies all score. And that's how we got to 9-2.
That when we talk about them having an absolute loaded lineup at any time, like the feeling that Brian Snitker must have sitting there with the game 2-2 in the 7th inning, Diesel, the feeling that he must have throughout the course of a season where at any point this thing could get blown open. That's got to be fun, man. Like being a coach for a team that good, 9-2, bottom of the 8th. Like you never know, might not be done yet.
That's a great reason to go to an Atlanta Braves game, right? Because you're going to see fireworks.
Yeah.
Every single time you go out.
People like offense. Nobody really, as much as people don't want to, admit it, nobody wants to see a 1-0 game. That's no fun.
No, pitchers' duels are dull, man.
They are. We want to see points.
Chicks Dig the Long Ball really did save Major League Baseball.
For sure.
And the offensive explosion since then. Remember then, like when I was a kid, baseball games were like a lot of 3-2 games, 3-1, 4-0. If it got to 5-6 runs, you'd scored a lot.
And now 9 runs is like, average day at the ballpark for the Braves.
I mean, this is exactly what Major League Baseball wanted, though, when they moved when they made the bases just a little bit bigger, when they changed some of the rules,
changed the bats too,
a little bit easier, changed the bats, and made it easier to pick off steal bases. This is what they wanted, and this is entertaining.
Well, you know what?
I don't care what the fogies who want to keep baseball the same.
I agree, because at the end of the day, it needs to be enjoyable for people who want to get into baseball, right? For non-baseball guy. And I think with a new pitch clock rule that was implemented, I think that's great. It's helped. It's helped a lot. It really has. So I'm all on board. I'm on board.
Madcraft points out that Olsen has got 3 doubles on the game today. Wow. Absolutely crushing it.
All-star, baby.
Yep. Jump back over to that South Carolina women's game.
Let's do it.
That score. That score is blown wide open as well.
Hey, before I jump back, guess the score.
I'm going to say that it's now 31 to 18.
Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Oh, you're not far off on the Carolinas, but Indiana's creeped back in.
34-28 now with 5:30 to go in the second quarter.
So we might have a game still. Oh, look at the frustration there. That's not good. I know this is great radio, but what a game. Hey, at the end of the day, like South Carolina needs to be tested. They really do.
Hey, we're fans just like you. We're watching this just like everybody else.
For sure. For sure. And if those teams are good, Diesel, our program's better.
Yep. We love it. We love it. So much else to get to on the show today that we haven't had a chance to really to highlight.
Yeah.
But, Clemson has knocked off Arizona to advance to their first Elite 8 in 44 years. Down the stretch, things were getting real tight, but Clemson was able to blow it open in the final seconds of the game on this play right here.
They put it in. Nobody guarding Gerard. Up ahead. Nobody guarding Dylan Hunter. And he's going to lay it in. And the younger brother has an and one. Dylan Hunter with his first basket of the game.
I was curious to see if Clemson was going to be able to stop what Arizona was doing down the stretch. You saw several times that they were able to lob it over everybody's heads and get it down low to their center. We had a couple of people texting into the show complaining that they were pushing off quite a bit. I mean,
Who, Arizona?
yeah, Arizona. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. They weren't calling it. So, I mean, complaining about it now is kind of meaningless. But they kept scoring on that play. They were just throwing it over PJ Hall's head down low to the center, and he was scoring layup after layup. I think I saw it in 2 or 3 straight possessions. And Arizona was able to get this thing down to a 2-point game late, and then inexplicably with 15 seconds left in the ball game, when you should be playing tight press defense, they just left Joe Girard wide open,
in
the corner.
For the crap that we have given the officiating at times, I thought last night's game was called pretty well, pretty even-sided, I felt like. And I think a lot of that has to do with the bigs, right? Like the Arizona big was so fun to watch. I kind of expected it to be a foul fest early, especially with him and PJ. It wasn't. It really wasn't. But
we all want to see these guys beat and bang on each other. We don't want to see the best players taken out of the game late.
No doubt. No doubt. And that was a great call, by the way, on the Dylan Hunter N1. Fantastic call. Clemson just – listen, we talked about it earlier in the show. What they have done is really hard to fathom and put into words, and we asked Don Munson about it. And if you missed it, we'll replay that interview for you in the final hour. But Diesel, like, I don't know if we understand and really grasp how crazy it is that 16 days later, you have a chance to be one of the Final Four teams if you win. 16 days ago, you and I weren't on the air yet together, but they lost to Boston College. Clemson did.
Yeah. Everything was trending in the wrong direction.
Let's be honest. Let's pretend. What happens if they lose to New Mexico? Today's the 29th. Is he the coach today? Maybe.
No, Brownell's fired.
If they
lose to New Mexico, Brownell's fired.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, I don't know of a sport that is so I call it a weird, like a strange lady. Like that college yeah, man, college basketball is a strange lady. Like you have your job on the line. And then all of a sudden you rattle off 3 wins and you're the underdog in all 3 games. And now all of a sudden your job status is not really in question.
I'm going to be interested to see what the line will be on this Alabama-Clemson game. I don't know if they have early lines out for this yet.
They have.
Already or not. If I had to guess.
Guess it.
I'm going to guess and say Alabama's favored by 3.5.
2.5.
Okay.
So for the 4th straight game, Clemson has the underdog mentality.
And hey, Clemson fans, you should want me to pick Alabama to win this ball game because I've picked against Clemson 3 games in a row in this NCAA tournament, and you have defied me each and every time, and you've gone out and won basketball games. So I may just have to pick against Clemson again.
But let me ask you this, though. Do you not think it's strange that Clemson's an underdog because they already beat Bama once? And it really wasn't close.
Yeah, that is strange. I mean, I'd have to go back and look and really see how Alabama is trending over the past couple of games. I mean, if they are kind of shooting the lights out of the gym, if they're putting up a lot of points, I can understand why they might come to that conclusion.
I would probably think that, and I don't know how much this has to do with it or not. It'd be a question for someone, a bookie, someone who really knows how Vegas sets these lines. But I think a win over North Carolina really intrigues the line makers more than a win over Arizona.
I think I know why.
All right,
so
tell me.
I'm looking at their last 5 games. Last 5 games, Alabama's put up 89, 72, 109, 102, and 92. Clemson has held opponents, or Clemson has put up 77, 72, 77, 76, and 81.
Ooh.
Or no, I'm sorry. I got that wrong. 77, 72, 77, 55, and 76.
Mm-hmm.
The Boston College and the Wake games were both losses. So Clemson is scoring very consistently in this tournament. 77 twice, 72 once. Alabama's putting up a lot of points over the past couple of weeks. They did need overtime to put up 92 on Arkansas. They put up 88 on Florida State, on Florida.
Mm-hmm.
That's the game that put them out of the SEC tournament.
What's crazy though,
they can score.
They can score, but like again, if you're Clemson, you 100% want to be the underdog. Nobody thrives in the underdog role more than Clemson, right? Little old Clemson Heck, the basketball account tweeted that out last night after the win. Little old Clemson. Same thing Dabo used to say. No one thrives in the underdog role like Clemson does because for whatever reason, they do feel like they, are being disrespected. And I guess that's great because it helps. But Diesel, all 3 games they have been, and if they were to play throughout, if they were to go on a run and keep winning, they wouldn't be favored ever the rest of this tournament. Clemson will not, if Clemson continues to win,
play the underdog card.
They will have to.
Keep playing it.
Because, for example, Diesel, you think they'd be favored against UConn? Heck no. That's what I'm saying. The days of Clemson being favored, I don't know what it would take, but even beating Alabama in the regular season, 2.5 points isn't a lot, right?
Well, I think what's going to help Clemson a lot is Alabama does give up a lot of points. They gave up 87 last night. They gave up 61 against Gulf Coast, 96 against Charleston, 102 against Florida, 88 in overtime against Arkansas. So Alabama doesn't play great defense. Clemson does. That's going to be where Clemson, that's their MO of the whole team, right? Play great defense and just try to outlast and outscore your opponents. Alabama can certainly go on runs when they need to and put up a lot of points. But, we find out, what happens when an elite defense hits a streaky offense.
Without a doubt. And we talked to Don Munson about that earlier with his own defense that Clemson's played, which I was so impressed with last night. And again, when the first half ended, my initial reaction, my initial thought, Diesel, was, man, how has Clemson done it a 3rd game in a row? How have they been so good defensively once again? Well, they were really good in the first half. They did slip a little defensively, in my opinion, in the second half, but they still played really well. And you know what? As Don said, that's going to have to be their MO if they want to continue to win, because we said it yesterday going into the Arizona game, Diesel. Clemson's not a team built to win by outscoring you, right? They're not going to just light it up. The 3 wins they've had this postseason have been because of their defense. We say it all the time. Defense travels. And when you're playing in these kind of situations, man, it sure does help. It sure does help. Seems like it could be a big help. Speaking of Don Munson, we will revisit our conversation with Don Munson next. What are the Clemson folks saying? What's Don Munson saying about the early predictions with them, Clemson Tigers, and Alabama? Find out next right here on Wire to Wire.
It's our pleasure to be joined right now by the Director of Communications for Clemson Athletics, Don Munson, play-by-play voice. You hear him in football. You hear him on basketball. We love him around here. Thank you so much, Don, for taking the time to join us today. You've got a real busy travel schedule, I'm sure, but, man, it's got to be a whirlwind and just so much fun to talk about a 77-72 win that puts Clemson in the Elite Eight for the first time since 1980. Thanks for joining the show.
Absolutely. I don't have any travel schedule. I'm just sitting here in LA and walking back and forth to the Coliseum for stuff. So it's my travel schedule is pretty light right now.
Don, here we are again, Clemson, Alabama. We'll get into the Arizona thing, but how much does it amuse you that you get to keep calling Clemson, Alabama games across multiple sports time and time and time again? The familiarity's got to be fun. Dealing with those guys over there has got to be fun. It's almost like the universe wills it.
And obviously it's become a rivalry, and it's funny, I've seen Clemson, Alabama in baseball. Obviously I've seen it in football. Now I get to, this will be the second time this season that we see it in basketball. And really the first time that it happened, the only reason that happened, ACC, SEC, matchup, and we probably don't play that game unless it's scheduled that way because of that little ACC, SEC matchup that they did. So it's interesting, but it does seem like that Clemson and Alabama are constantly butting heads, and I think for both schools it's fun.
Don, I want to ask you this. After the Baylor game, the first comment that Brad Brownell had to give was the word defense. That was what he was most impressed by. We talked about it yesterday on this program, going into last night's game against Arizona, the style of play, the way they could score the basketball, that Clemson's defense was once again going to have to be the storyline. Do you feel like that for 2, maybe 3 games in a row now, the number one storyline of how Clemson is getting it done is their defense?
Well, I'm not shocked at that at all. I mean, just look at the stats, and I've been shouting this from the mountaintops. When Clemson holds a opponent now to under 40% shooting, they're 17-0. So yeah, it's going to be about defense. I mean, if you don't think that that's the common denominator in Clemson winning games, then you're just overlooking the facts. So yeah, Clemson's got to play good defense to be able to win.
Don, before the Baylor game, Clemson was 2-5 on the season in one-possession games. I don't know what the technical definition of a one-possession game is, but I say if it's a one-possession under a minute to play, that's a one-possession game. Now, he's gone 2 in a row against Baylor and last night against Arizona. What do you think has clicked in the last couple of games that as things get tight down the stretch, and then both of those games against Baylor and against Arizona, Clemson got out to big leads and let it get tight down the stretch. But talk about the mental fortitude of this team and Brad Brownell's theories and policies and just getting them to circle the wagons there late in the game when it's really tight.
Yeah, I think that what you're seeing is that you have older players that are on the floor and they're making plays. I mean, they're executing what they're supposed to execute, and being able to do that and playing with confidence. I think there's confidence in that, and playing with a lead. I mean, it's difficult to come from behind. I don't care if you're just down 2 at halftime. It's difficult to play from behind. And Clemson, has trailed for a total of 50 seconds in 3 games. So they've been playing ahead of schedule. They've been playing ahead of these people. And so yeah, I think that that's probably more good talk for fan base, and also it makes fan bases obviously very, very nervous. It makes some media folks, I think, very, very nervous. But I think that what we're seeing is that, yeah, this is a Clemson bunch, and the 5 that are on the floor coming down the stretch know how to take care of business. And had there been some moments this season when that hasn't been the case? Absolutely. But you know what? They learned from their mistakes. They were able to grow from that. And so I think that those experiences actually help them in what has happened here in the last couple of ball games.
Don Munson joining us on the program. Don, I want to ask you this. The time that you've been covering sports in general, do you know of a sport when you get to March Madness that is unique as college basketball can be? And what I mean by that is 16 days ago, Clemson lost to Boston College. They were a loss away in the NCAA tournament from Clemson fans wanting the head basketball coach gone, right? Let's just call it like it, call it like we see it there. If they would have lost 2 in a row, things could have gotten hairy for Brad Brownell. Do you recall, or can you put your finger on what makes this sport so unique on how quickly things can change, how quickly storylines can change? Because fast forward 16 days later, and Brad Brownell's job looks pretty dang safe.
It's a story that continues to play out, though, time after time after time. I mean, you go back, I sit there and look at things, and I think, I'm 62, so I've probably seen a little bit more than you all have. But I can think of when Jacksonville, for instance, made a run. Now, back in these days when Jacksonville was playing, they only had to win, I think, 3 games to get to the national final game. But Artis Gilmore in Jacksonville play against UCLA for the national championship. All right, so Jacksonville wasn't a known factor. Jacksonville got hot at the right time. NC State in '83, they have to win the ACC tournament even to qualify for the NCAA tournament. They get sent out west. They win a double overtime game in their first round. They win a nail biter in the second round. They knock off Ralph Sampson in Virginia in the Western Regional Final to make it to the Final Four. They end up winning it all on the pit in Albuquerque. This is Syracuse a couple of years ago with Joseph Girard on the team. They weren't playing very well coming out of the ACC tournament. They made a run to the Sweet 16. It's something that you see happen over and over again in basketball, and it's the old theory: a team gets hot and they just get difficult to put away. Stephen Curry and Davidson were a great example of that. Who thought Davidson was going to make a run to the Elite Eight, and they had a chance actually to make it to the Final Four, lost a close game to make it to the Final Four. So that I think is the thing that everybody loves about this tournament, whether it's a major program or a small program. There's always a team or two that's going to do this in the tournament.
Don Munson, you hear him on the call each and every broadcast for Clemson Athletics. Don, Stephen Webb, one of our great P1 viewers on our web stream, pointed this out earlier. He compiled this. Clemson, top 5 in baseball, national champions in soccer, in the Elite Eight in basketball, 2 national championships in the last decade in football. Gymnastics great in its first year. Softball, white hot in its young career there. I'm going to give you an opportunity to say it, Don, and I'm okay with it if you want to homer this up. Is Clemson Athletics the number 1 athletics department in the country right now?
I don't know if they're number 1, because Clemson has, 18 sports, I think is what they're running. You have some schools that are running 32. Like Boston College in our league I believe they run 32 sports. That's a heavy load to carry, particularly when you consider what it costs just for one student to enroll and go to Boston College. But I would say we're as good as anybody. I mean, I would say right now we're as good as anybody. And I can tell you that being on campus, being inside the athletic department, and being a part of it, that it permeates. That one sport has a way to feed off of another, and all the head coaches are all kind of in line with one another. But the most beautiful thing about Clemson is that the whole campus is in line with one another. Academics and athletics have found a way really to balance themselves on campus. It comes from the lead man. It comes from President Clements. Certainly it starts there. The board of trustees, the athletic director, and Graham Neff, they are all on sync and on the same page. There's no infighting. There's no jealousy. There's nothing about it, because they all realize that Clemson's success, is across a wide swath. And there are a few colleges right now that are doing it better than Clemson.
Don, can you go into just a little more detail about the buzz between these programs? Like, can you describe what it's like inside these buildings when athletes from different sports cross paths, they run into each other? Can you let us into that a little bit more?
Well, what I can say is it's funny because back in the old days, all the departments, all the sports were all in the same building. Now every sport has their own building. Men's and women's tennis have their building. Men's and women's soccer, their building. Baseball, their building. Football, basketball. It all goes. But what the head coaches have been able to do is been able to find a way. There's actually a council meeting that they have every week that involves every sport and either a head coach or one of the administrators from that sport, but usually all the head coaches are there, and that includes the head football coach at Clemson. Now, Dabo's not there as often as he would like to be, but he's there pretty regularly, and I think that probably helps create as much as like King Arthur's Round Table. There's Graham Neff is certainly Arthur, but then he's got all of his knights that are around him, and they're all on the same page, and they all work together to support the other, whether it's trading phone calls or just sending a text message or whatever. I mean, it's the reason you see, social media yesterday, Dabo Swinney FaceTiming with Joseph Girard, because Brad Brownell had Dabo Swinney be part of the recruiting process to get Joseph Girard to Clemson. They went over and spent time at Swinney's house. Swinney got into a shooting contest with Girard. Who's not going to fall in love with that kind of stuff?
Hey, Don, back in November, these two teams, Clemson and Alabama, they squared off. Clemson came out on top. Do you think when you look at this game upcoming between Clemson and Alabama, do you think coaches are able to pull anything from the last contest, or is it because it was so far in the past, it's almost a new page, new chapter?
Oh, no, you're able to pull things because you're able to see personnel live and in person. It's totally different when you watch it on tape than when you're actually seeing it in person. Point in case, Baylor. When Brad Brownell went into the game against Baylor, he was really concerned were his guards going to be able to contain Baylor's guards, particularly when they were trying to turn the corner and get downhill. On tape and on film, what he thought is that he thought Baylor's guards were too quick. But he quickly realized within the first 3 to 5 minutes of that game that their guards couldn't get downhill on his guards. And so he made a slight adjustment with what they were going to do defensively, and so it worked. Alabama, he's already seen the personnel, so he kind of knows a little bit from that end. And then obviously they were able to actually watch them in person play last night against North Carolina. So I think there are some things that they can pull from that game, but there are also some additional things that that they learned last night and that they'll find also on tape.
Don, we've talked many times on these airwaves about expectations with the basketball program, with the football program. Do you believe that what they've achieved as of today, an Elite Eight, and what they still have the potential to achieve going forward, do you think this season has the potential to increase or raise the expectations for basketball permanently going forward?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, expectations have already been raised. I mean, just by doing this, that's just the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the fan base. That's even the nature of coaches and administrators. Absolutely, the bar has been raised because you've done it. So now go do it again, and that's how you build. That's how you build programs. Now you just got to. It's the consistency. How consistent can you get? What's the support going to be like? I think that Coach Brownell is able now to turn to supporters and turn to his own athletic director and, ask for a little bit more, because with a little bit more, we can do even more. There was the report that came out, of the Sweet 16 teams as far as their operating budget. The lowest was Long Beach State at $7.8 million, and the next lowest, number 15, was Clemson, sitting there at $8 million. Duke atop the list at $28 million. So when you're operating at that much of a deficit, there's a reason that Duke has been Duke, but there now is more of a reason that Clemson can try to build and become, their own their own program and what they can actually do. I think that expectations have definitely been raised.
Don, you talked there about the operating budget going forward, and it's going to be fascinating to see. And I don't want to go down this path yet until the season is over, but it's going to be fascinating to see how the NIL boosters react next season, because it certainly is going to be a need to go back to that for the 2024-25 season. Since we've got you here for just a couple of more minutes, what's on the agenda in LA while you're there? How's Don Munson going to stay loose in the City of Angels?
Well, I'm actually about to get on a bus here and head over to practice. The team's going to be leaving the team hotel here in about 15 minutes. So they're going to go over and do a closed practice over there. And then they have a media session that they'll meet, and that'll probably take about another hour and a half. So the next 3 hours, I'll be back over and watching practice, and then going to all the media stuff and just kind of listening. And seeing what's going on. There's just a little bit of game prep as we get ready for the broadcast tomorrow. And then tonight I'll actually go out and have a good dinner with the guys on the broadcast team, and then we'll come back and I'll start starting on my spotting boards, and I'll continue that throughout the morning and go to some morning meetings as well with the basketball team as they go over their points of emphasis, and then get ready for getting on air at 8 o'clock and for 8:49 East Coast time tip-off.
And Don, last question from me here. I always think of things after the fact, like, man, I should have asked Don Munson about this. What is something really fascinating floating around in your head that we haven't asked you about?
I don't know that there's, I really don't know there's much, because everything's getting pretty much covered. I mean, this is a flat out open book when you get to this point. I mean, everybody knows about everything about you. It's going to be, I guess, what to me is going to be interesting tomorrow is to see who kind of shows up to the game. Because I think there are people that are almost afraid to come to the game because they'll think that they'll jinx it if they come to the game. There are others that, nope, I want to be here, to see this moment in time. There are people that are going to put it off. No, I'll wait till they go to the Final Four in Phoenix, but that's not guaranteed. I mean, that's obviously that's not guaranteed. So I would tell you that if you're on the fence about whether to be here or not, you need to get off that fence and come out and soak up the atmosphere from that. And I would guess maybe that's the one thing you haven't asked me about is the atmosphere out here in the Western Regional. And it was really interesting last night because when we walked to the building, all of us were talking, we thought it was going to be, a pro-Arizona crowd, because Arizona just being an hour away by plane, 5 hours away by car. There's a large Arizona base that is here in Los Angeles. But the shocking thing to me was it was a building that was controlled by North Carolina fans. And North Carolina showed out in mass for their game. And I think that Clemson had some of those North Carolina people behind them and cheering for them, and it kind of evened things out. But the atmosphere in the building has been really, really good. And obviously a building that is absolutely legendary when you walk into it.
Don, enjoy our chats each and every time we have a chance to bring you on, and thank you for coming on the first time we ask you on a brand new show. You could have said Wire to Wire. I don't know that show. Diesel and Cole, I don't know those guys. I'm not coming on that show. But, man, you're old faithful. You're here each and every time, and we thank you so much for your time.
Dude, you never turn down an opportunity to spread the gospel, and they're good to spread the gospel to the Clemson Tigers. Go Tigers.
Can't wait to hear you on the call. 8:49 tomorrow night. Number 6, Clemson. Number 4, Alabama. That is Don Munson. You hear him on the call of Clemson football, of Clemson basketball. He is just a great friend of the station and the show.
From the NESAC 98.9 WORD Weather Center, here's the Carolinas' most trusted forecast on the Fan Upstate. Increasing clouds tonight, low 44. We'll have lingering clouds early Saturday, then increasing sun, high 77. Clear Saturday night, low 51. Sunny on Sunday, high of 81. I'm meteorologist Ingvar Lockwood on the Fan Upstate. Right now, 71.
If you're driving a car or truck with an expired warranty and suddenly lost your transmission or needed a full engine repair, would a $4,000 repair bill leave you stranded? I'm Danica Patrick. Don't get caught off guard with a vehicle breakdown. Choose the company I trust, Endurance. No matter the mileage, if your vehicle is less than 20 years old, Endurance offers auto protection plans for any budget. Protection on the drivetrain, electrical, transmission, AC, and more. Plus 24/7 roadside assistance and rental car reimbursement on any plan. Endurance handles everything from certified mechanic of your choice. Act now and get 1 full year of elite benefits. A $2,000 value free.
Endurance has paid hundreds of millions in claims. Call for your fast free quote today. Call 800-296-7260. That's 800-296-7260. 800-296-7260.
There's something remarkable about the University of South Carolina. It's in the labs, where researchers are discovering ways to make communities healthier and stronger. It's in the nation's best first-year student experience and top-rate programs in nursing and health sciences. It's where more South Carolina students have access to higher education than ever before. Because when you stand for something bigger than yourself, you can create something that benefits us all. Behold, the remarkable we.
Getting your biggest tax refund from Jackson Hewitt can lead to some spirited reactions.
Jackson Hewitt!
Jackson Hewitt is so sure they'll get you your biggest refund that if they don't, you get your money back plus $100.
Jackson Hewitt!
Switch to Jackson Hewitt and we'll beat what you paid last year, even if you filed online. Ain't nothing to it. Switch to Jackson Hewitt and pay less for tax prep, guaranteed. Proof of prior year payment required when filing. New clients only at participating locations through April 7th. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com.
Get 2 Bojangles ham biscuits for $5. It's bow time.
It's bow time. The only thing you want after a made-from-scratch Bojangles biscuit with juicy country ham is another one. For a limited time, get 2 ham biscuits for $5.
7. Keep
It's Wire to Wire. Diesel and Cole Bryson, text the show, 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. You can always call us on the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. That's 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. 38 minutes left to go here in the show. South Carolina has opened this thing up in a big way in the second half versus Indiana.
Ball game.
Yeah, ball game is basically done at this point.
It's crazy, though,
Efforting
Diesel, man.
61-48 now with 4:29 to go in the third quarter.
Is that not wild? Like, just think about this for a second. This team is so good that the Sweet 16 game by the halftime break, third quarter, it's not even giving them a challenge. Do you think people realize, like, that we're living in one of the most dominant eras of South Carolina women's basketball ever? Like, this is ridiculous. They may not be tested until the Final Four, depending on who they play.
Yeah, I'm looking up the live bracket here, who they may face going forward. Apologies for not knowing.
It's so impressive,
they'll
man.
be playing number 3 Oregon State, who took down 2 seed Notre Dame 70-65.
Gamecocks by 20.
Oregon State beat Eastern Washington 73-51. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue Gamecocks by 20.
I want an LSU South Carolina rematch for the national title so bad I can't stand it.
Caitlin Clark and Iowa didn't handle 8 seed West Virginia.
Hey,
they're in the Elite 8 in the women's tournament. They played West Virginia 64-54. I mean, they beat Holy Cross by nearly 30, but that's a 116 matchup. I think Iowa's very, very beatable. LSU still in this thing. LSU spanked Middle Tennessee, and they beat Rice by 10 so far in the tournament. I mean, I think LSU probably gets past Iowa. We're going to see South Carolina LSU again.
So that's what I was going to ask you. South Carolina wouldn't see it. They're on the other side of the bracket of Iowa.
That's correct.
Which, by the way,
not see Iowa, and that might be a tragedy in the sport to not see.
Yeah,
to see Don Staley take on Iowa again.
I was surprised that Oregon State took down Notre Dame. I thought Notre Dame would be in the Final Four, but you're right. South Carolina and LSU. We talked about it. What, Monday or Tuesday? That is going to be for the national championship, and it'll be round 3. Is that right?
Right.
Round 3 for the national title. What a game. That might be more anticipated than UConn versus whoever they play. I mean, seriously, it may.
Yeah.
If UConn were to play Houston, Diesel, I honestly think there would be more excitement about South Carolina LSU than UConn Houston.
Well, I've seen message board chatter about, a lot of them are upset fans. I mean, that's what message boards are for, right? But message board chatter, people upset about App State basketball and just the number of players who left the program. 6 of their starting 9 players, or 6 of their rotational 9 players, entered the transfer portal. 2 of them graduated. But people were saying things like, this is why I like the women's game better, because NIL and the transfer portal isn't a thing. Like, dude, NIL and the transfer portal isn't a thing because there's not a lot of NIL money in women's basketball. Not nearly as much NIL money as there is in men's college basketball.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not to say that it won't creep in as this sport continues to grow. I mean, people will throw money at people. I mean, we saw, I missed out, forget what the offer was, but Ice Cube's On 3 league offered Caitlin Clark a pretty good chunk of change to go play in the On 3 league next year. And I'm genuinely hoping she doesn't accept it, because I mean, does Caitlin Clark really want to turn herself into a sideshow?
But wouldn't that be more than she made in the WNBA?
Well, yeah, I'm sure it is, because, you know, WNBA salaries aren't that big.
Yeah.
But my question is, does she want to be taken seriously as an athlete and go have a long career in the WNBA, potentially barring injury?
Yeah.
Or does she want to be a sideshow?
That's a great question. It depends, though. Like, what is her objective? Is her objective to make money so she's good the rest of her life? Because that NIL bag, that's pretty nice. WNBA, you said it, Diesel. It doesn't pay a whole lot. It does not pay a whole lot. Just a quick update. South Carolina leads.
Her net worth right now is estimated about $3 million.
South Carolina leads Indiana 63-50. 2:52 to go in the third quarter. But
Indiana's staying.
They are. They're trying
close.
to keep it in. Yeah, they're trying to keep it close.
But I mean, how are you going to come back 13 on South
Yeah,
Carolina?
not happening. I said it on Twitter the other day, Diesel. I think being down 10 to South Carolina feels like being down 25 to a normal team, you know? Seriously, I mean, you're not coming back. You're right. You're not coming back down 13. I say that, but you shouldn't at least. Hey, what is the deal with the new Orioles ownership group?
Yeah.
You talked about that earlier.
I did. We talked about this yesterday about how, shocked both of us are about just the rapid reascension of the Baltimore Orioles. That was a franchise that was left for dead. They weren't investing any money in it whatsoever. Well, they have been purchased by a new ownership group who really cares, who really wants to see this team grow.
Good.
And here's audio. I mean, how do you not love this? Here's audio of Orioles ownership finding a random bar in Orioles Park. I don't know what they call it, but it's, the Braves have the park right around the stadium. Orioles
Battery?
The Battery.
Yeah.
The Orioles have similar bars right around their stadium. And the ownership got up on the bar and is buying rounds of beers for the entire bar. You got to love this. Here's what that sounded like.
Yo, listen up. I want to introduce myself. I'm Mike Arrighetti, one of the new owners of the O's. This is my best friend, Smitty, also a new owner of the O's. And this is Mitch. We're buying everybody a beer.
That's great.
I want to know, what did Mitch do to this guy? He's like, this guy over here, this is Smitty. He's my best friend. We've known each other since the block, and this is Mitch.
Mitch. That's Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch. Oh, man.
That's great, man.
The question is, does it even enter Dave Tepper's mind to do something like this? Does Dave Tepper's fat, cholesterol, congested, and addled brain even have the capacity to think, man, how easy is it?
That's great.
How easy is it to get Panthers fans back on my side other than going into a bar right around Mint Street and just picking up the tab?
That's great, man. That is so awesome. Like, that doesn't even seem real. You know what I love, though? Like, they really have invested. I'll be honest with you, Diesel. That ownership group that's done that, it kind of reminds me of what's going on right now in Washington with the Commanders. I really think that ownership group is on a similar pace. And it's not all about having the David Tepper, richest man in the NFL. It's not about that. It's about having guys that know what to do in order to win, in order to take your team to the top.
It's not that hard.
Did you hear, speaking of ownership groups, I've got one that's going to rival that. Did you hear what the Athletics, still Oakland, soon to be Vegas, did you hear what they did yesterday?
No.
Yesterday was opening day in Oakland. This is unreal. So the fan base of the A's absolutely despise the ownership group, as they should, right?
Sure, you're taking
But
our team away.
they are. So the Oakland A's yesterday, they must have been working on this for months. They show up by the thousands. I mean, like probably 30 to 40,000 ready to go in the game for opening day. What do? They watch the game from the parking lot of the stadium.
No one was there.
No, it was empty. I mean, obviously there's your casual, 1,700 people there who show up for A's games.
God.
They watched the game from the parking lot.
That's amazing.
It is great, isn't it? I mean, why don't more teams do that? More fan bases.
What a fantastic civil protest.
Yes. So they said, hey, we're going to come to the game, but guess what? We're not going to buy a ticket. You move our team.
Love this.
How bad is that?
You don't know how much I love this.
That's fantastic. It really is.
In case you missed it, Atlanta Braves go 1-0 on the season, 9-3 win on the road at Philadelphia. They had some late explosion there.
But did you hear the but?
But
Sean Murphy already on the IR.
Wasn't it you who said Sean Murphy's probably going to be the guy that doesn't become an all-star this year?
Oblique strain.
Eesh.
Day one goes to the IR.
Wow.
I mean, come on.
We've also already had our first benches clearing brawl.
No way.
Of the 2024 season. This occurred between the Brewers and the Mets. I've seen the play. I don't really understand what the big deal is here. Mets were on defense. A runner came over from first, slid hard into second base. It looked like he might have come in a little high with the cleats on the slide. And both teams took exception to that. They clear the benches and they go after each other. But it was like the lamest, like saddest benches clear. And they're like, it's like everybody's like, oh, okay, are we really doing this? Opening day, okay, let's trot on out there.
Don't even have your cardio in yet.
Yeah, exactly.
The Texas Rangers game last night was similar. There was a questionable call that the MLB had to, on opening day, had to backpedal on in the Rangers game last night. How great of a look is that for the MLB? Your umpire makes a call. Game goes, I believe that went into extra innings last night, the Rangers game. They end up winning, but they're having to backpedal on a call that was made. Not a great look. Not a great look there for the MLB.
End of the third quarter, Indiana has pulled this one, relatively close. It's close when you're playing South Carolina. 10-point lead, 65-55 for South Carolina there at the end of the third quarter.
That is close.
That's close. Playing this game tight. Playing this team tight.
I'm still shocked, as I said a minute ago. Notre Dame, I did not expect to go down today. So South Carolina now, all of a sudden, as you said just a few minutes ago, Diesel, if they were to win the game today, they would play who? You're good. You probably don't have it pulled up anymore, but the women's bracket?
Yeah, South Carolina will play Oregon State. Oregon State has already punched their ticket into the Elite Eight.
By beating Notre Dame. Gotcha. So the Gamecocks a quarter away from playing Oregon State. Very interesting. Very interesting. Again, as I said a minute ago, I don't think South Carolina will really be tested until maybe Final Four, maybe LSU. That game's always close. It's always fun. But, man, the fireworks that we had that last game, if we could get round 3, that would be fascinating.
Broadcasting live here from the Ingles Markets Studios, 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. If you want to get your thoughts in the last 26 minutes here of the show, please do.
What do you think if going back to that Baltimore Oriole audio that you had, with the guys, the owners getting up on the bar, buying everyone in the bar around us, around a beer, whatever it was.
You want to hear this again?
One more time. Let's do it.
Yo, listen up! I want to introduce myself. I'm Mike Arrighetti, one of the new owners of the O's. This is my best friend Smitty, also a new owner of the O's. And this is Mitch. We're buying everybody a beer.
And this is Mitch.
That is great, man. Like, I just wonder, you mentioned that with David Tepper, like, Diesel, if David Tepper went to Charlotte and tried to do the same thing. Like, maybe we could even envision, like, let's pretend. What's your best David Tepper voice? I don't even know how. This is David Tepper. I would like to. And before he even gets the sentence out, Diesel, you know what you would hear? Hi, I'm David Tepper, the owner of the Carolina Panthers.
He'll be on the dais, mad. Now, guys.
Wait a minute. Guys, we have more concerts than any other NFL franchise. I think that you need to understand that we're doing a great job in downtown Charlotte bringing concerts to the city of Charlotte.
Tell you what, we're going to help you out. We're gonna give you free tickets to Charlotte FC. If you buy a football ticket, you're gonna get a free ticket to Charlotte FC. Guys, come on. Okay, 10 free beers for everyone.
You get the one guy in the back that stands up. Yeah. I don't even know who David Tepper is. Yeah. That's great. That is great.
David Tepper wouldn't have the balls, the stones to go get up in front of the people. He doesn't have the stuff. He'll stand in front of media that he can blackball when they don't say nice enough things about him. He'll get angry. He won't field questions, and then he'll go hide. I would rather Dave Tepper send his wife Nicole because she's not bad looking.
Something interesting.
Yeah.
Next segment, we're going to get to our early thoughts on Clemson, Alabama. I want to ask you a question on the other side of this break. What would it take? We talked about in college basketball how quickly things can turn around, right? 16 days later, Brad Brownell, everybody's pulling for Big Bad Brad now because he's in the Sweet 16. No, now he's in the Elite 8. What would it take for David Tepper to be able to stand up on that bar? Jadeveon Clowney signing, nah, that doesn't cut it. What would it take for Carolina Panthers fans to flip? Maybe not quite as fast, but to be able to stand up on that bar with David Tepper and say, that's our owner. Find out next on Wire to Wire.
increase your salary. You're listening to
It is a 5-point game, ladies and gentlemen. The South Carolina Lady Gamecocks are being threatened. Diesel, can you believe what you're seeing right now?
This is blowing me away. South Carolina was up to pushing a 20-point lead.
Yeah.
Midway, even late in the third quarter. Now we're down to a 5-point ball game.
Wow.
The Gamecocks getting pushed here with 7 minutes to go.
Wow. Hey, you know what it seems like every time they are pulling away, Indiana just creeps right back in. I mean, 5-point game with the ball, Indiana trying. Would this wreck the sports world? Indiana, 3-pointer, no good. Cardoso gets the rebound. That would be incredible if they could pull it off, but I don't think they will.
We'll be following this. I don't know if we'll be able to finish this entire game while we're still on the air, but we'll keep you updated.
We'll try
as we're going throughout for sure.
I want to ask you, though, Diesel, going back to I just find that audio so intriguing because, we've said it a couple of times already. With you and I hosting a show, we want Clemson to be good. We want South Carolina to be good, right? With their athletic programs. How boring. Yeah, how boring would it be if everybody sucked? South Carolina does their part a lot of the time, but they can't always suck. So they have to be good at something. Just kidding. Don't blow up the text.
Team this time of year. You know what I'm saying?
What would it take, though, all kidding aside, for I don't want to say quick turnaround, but for those Panther fans? Because when Cam Newton and the Panthers were good, Diesel, there was a buzz here.
Oh, absolutely.
There was a fantastic buzz.
And then Cam Newton ruined it with his attitude.
He did.
And not jumping on that ball in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's true. What would it take, though? Would it be a free agent signing or a draft pick in your mind that could really turn the ship around? Not really thinking realistically here.
Yeah.
Just kind of like spitballing, envisioning David Tepper's on that bar with his fans yelling, screaming, like the Clowney signing. That's wonderful, fine and dandy. Bryce Young, we don't really know what we feel about him, Diesel.
They'd have to trade. Dave Tepper would have to trade his wife to Cincinnati for Joe Burrow.
I think it'd have to be a trade, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It couldn't be a draft pick.
No.
Because you're not getting you don't have a draft pick in the first round anyway.
Obviously, what really happens is Dave Tepper's got to drive his fat ass out of Charlotte and never come back.
That's true.
That's the thing that buzzes and reunites the fan base.
They would probably do it with him if he sold the team. they would probably
just flock in the exact opposite of the Oakland A's opening day, where 1,700 went to the game and the other 40,000 stayed outside in the parking lots.
So without that happening, I'm thinking free agent signing, draft pick, or trade. I think you're right. I think it'd have to be a trade.
Yeah, it's got to be it's not going to be a quarterback because they've already got Bryce Young, but everybody's on the table, right? It has to be
nothing's out of it.
It has to be Patrick Mahomes. It has to be Joe Burrow. It has to be somebody like that. Maybe a T. Higgins is not going to do it by himself.
Non-quarterback.
Who's going to be a Trevor Lawrence? Because then you're splitting the South Carolina fan base in half.
For sure.
And he's not playing great either.
But I'm just thinking, though, non-quarterback wise, because you're right, they've got their quarterback, Bryce Young. Non-quarterback wise, Diesel, if you think of the top 10 players in the NFL, can I give you a name?
Sure.
And I want you to tell me if you think this would do it or not. Would a Tyreek Hill create that moment?
I think he would. I think a lot of fans would be really excited. Now, I don't think you're going to see thousands of fans flocking back into the stadium for that.
But, man, it would help, though. Like, I'm just trying to think of what moment, what signing could create that moment non-quarterback wise because they already have their quarterback. And I'm thinking someone electric. I'm thinking someone that can sell tickets, probably on the offensive side of the ball, wouldn't you say? But you're right that it wouldn't be for a quarterback because they already have one. So I'm thinking a Tyreek Hill, or maybe in a couple of years when his contract's up. What about this, Diesel? What about a Deebo Samuels to the Carolina Panthers? Would that create
a lot of people? Yeah, that would excite a lot of people.
Homegrown guy?
Yeah, certainly you would. God, you would be Gamecocks 2.0.
Right. But I'm just trying to think if we want to be able to see that David Tepper moment on the bar with all his Carolina Panther faithful, what it would take to see. I think it would have to be a massive, massive trade. Obviously, quarterback moves the needle more than anything. But as you said, they already have their quarterback. I'll give you here's a good message from the stream from Matt Kraft. I like this. A tier 1 running back, Derrick Henry, would have done it. I do think Derrick Henry would have excited a lot of people. Would it have created that David Tepper on the bar moment? I don't know, but Madcraft, I do think that would have been a very, very exciting move that would maybe give this fan base some hope. Because when you do have a quarterback who's young, like Bryce Young, Diesel, you do want to give him an elite running back to take some of that pressure off of him. And they don't have that right now. So, Madcraft, I don't hate that suggestion. I think Derrick Henry certainly could have done it. I think a guy like Tyreek Hill or a Deebo Samuel could certainly entice him to have that bar moment. But I don't think, to put a bow on this, I don't think there's any player out there that would create a moment like this that's not a quarterback, as much as I hate to say it.
No, I mean, if quarterback is the straw that stirs the drink.
Right.
That is the one position that people can look at and say, this will save us. This position, this player will save us. I mean, let's be real. It may not happen for anybody short of Tom Brady. Tom Brady comes out of retirement and signs on as a Carolina Panther. And then all of a sudden, everybody's like, whoa.
Tepper's on the bar, baby.
69-62, 4:52 to go in the fourth quarter.
Rob Brown says, I'll text it for you. Start winning. It doesn't matter who with. NFL fans don't care about your college affiliation. If Tepper disappears until next March and Canales wins more than he loses, the stadium will be full. I agree with you, Rob, but my only counterpoint to that would be the current roster. You can't convince me is a roster that's going to win more than you lose. Being in the division gives you hope, but Atlanta's better. I don't see a win in the division. I don't think Bryce Young takes a tremendous leap from year 1 to year 2. I'm a big believer, Diesel, that with a quarterback who's young like that, like you really need a good offensive line and a good running back. In 2016, Dak Prescott looked, as a rookie, looked incredible. He had the best offensive line in football and the freshest running back in Ezekiel Elliott out of Ohio State. And when a quarterback has a really good O-line and a really good running back in their prime, boy, does that make that quarterback look good. So I just don't know that they're constructed right now to win more than they lose. Madcraft says, full of a bunch of idiots paying $14 per beer because I sure ain't going to be there. You can get a beer. Well, they might if the ticket prices were lower than the beer prices. That's a fact. I don't know if that's a good thing, but the ticket prices were lower.
Tickets were running for 50 cents a pop, and people still weren't buying them.
Texter says, Des Bryant, Grock, and Barry Sanders would have to be who they sign in order to see the David Tepper on the bar moment. That would be incredible. That would be incredible.
I think I stand for everybody. We would rather see Dave Tepper's wife on the bar than Dave Tepper on the bar.
All right. As we wrap up the program, Diesel,
what's more likely? People throw booze at him or they throw beer cans at him?
I think the booze will be empty because of the misery of the Panthers fans. So I think it'd be empty beer cans for sure. As we wrap up the program on this Friday edition of Wire to Wire, South Carolina has a 69-62 lead at a timeout, 4:50 to go over Indiana. Who do you like one more time tonight, Diesel? Just one more time for those who have just joined in the Sweet 16 games in the men's bracket tonight. I think there are 4 really, really good games tonight.
Yeah, I look at we got Houston, Duke.
Yep.
In the 1-4, NC State, Marquette, Purdue, Gonzaga, and Creighton, Tennessee. I look at I think Houston's coming out of this one. I think Marquette is finally going to end NC State's magical run. I hope they don't. I hope NC State does get it done another night. Stay alive one more night. Purdue is going to beat Gonzaga. This is funny, as Gonzaga was that team that every year is heaped with a lot of pressure on them. They fall short. And then finally the year where people say, Gonzaga, I think their run as this elite mid-major is kind of done. All of a sudden, boom, they're in the Sweet 16 and they have a chance to make a big, big statement tonight against Purdue, but I just don't see that happening. And then the number 3 seed Creighton and number 2 Tennessee. Tennessee is vulnerable. Creighton puts up a lot of points. I see this being a very tight game, but I think Tennessee's size ultimately gets it done for Tennessee. So I've got Houston, Marquette, Purdue, and Tennessee getting it done, going chalk down the line in the South and the Midwest regions.
The worst part about tonight, I believe the best game is the last game. 10:09 start, could be later than that. And Diesel, that sucker is not going to end till midnight or later. Luckily, it's a Friday, so people might be able to stay up and watch. But I do agree with you. I like NC State to drop a big L tonight. Marquette will end the glory days of the Wolfpack. And then Duke, Houston, give me Houston. Purdue continues to roll. Creighton, Tennessee, as I said, that's the most interesting game. I will take Tennessee. As much as I think this one's going to be close, I do think Dalton Connect can be the X factor, and I'll take Tennessee to pull it out tonight. Should be really good. South Carolina now, Diesel 70-62.
Coming down the wire, 4:22 to go in this game. When we're back on these airwaves for the very next time, we'll be leading you up to, we'll know if Clemson and their magical season is over or if the Crimson Tide fall to the Tigers. 8:49 Saturday. We'll be talking about it on Monday right here on The Fan Upstate. Keep the music running. Keep the music up. Guys, it's been great. Thank you to everybody who has been on the stream all day. You Tolos who hung out with us the entire show. We thank you, Madcraft. Rob, thanks for jumping in here. Tail end. Billy D, I hadn't seen your name in here. Awesome to have you along for the ride. Trey Davis, JD White, all of you guys, thank you so much. Thank you for making the first week of Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson so much damn fun. Excited to get back on the airwaves on Monday and talk Clemson, Alabama with you.